I can't work with this. Renta slammed his ceramic mug down on the table. Moguzo mumbled. You'll break the mug. Shut up. I'm holding back. And what about you, Moguzo? Doesn't she piss you off? Well, yeah, damn straight. You've gotta be pissed off at that woman. What's with her attitude? No matter how long we work with her, she doesn't try to get along with us better. Haruhiro, huh? What do you think about this? Well, what do you think? Huh, I'm asking you what you think. Alright, how many times have I asked you? What do you think now? You idiot, why you ask so many times in a row? Haruhiro sipped his beer. Honestly, I'm having a hard time dealing with it. You could say, I wish we could do something to fix that. Quit beating around the bush and say what you mean. What? Are you acting like that just because that woman looks good? That has nothing to do with it. No, you're too soft. You're too soft on women. You're a big softie. I'm not trying to be soft on her. You're just weak when it comes to Mary. You'll bash her like this when she's not around, but you'll never say anything to her face, like I could. Renta laid his face down on the table. That woman scares me. The looks she gives, that voice, she's too damn scary. I'm ready to cry here. Damn it, you mind if I cry? Moguzo patted Renta's shoulder. Don't cry. Stop that. Renta brushed Moguzo's hand away. Don't try to console me. I don't want a man consoling me. It's just too pathetic. Leave him be, Moguzo. Haruhiro sighed. He's always like this. If you worry about it every time, there'll be no end to it. Since Mary had joined the party, Haruhiro, Renta, and Moguzo had made a habit of visiting Sherry's tavern together when they came back from the old city of Demoro. It wasn't because they wanted to drink, but because they couldn't get to sleep. If they didn't blow off some steam like this first, they couldn't motivate themselves for the next day without it. The cost for one beer was discounted to 3 copper for badge holders, but Haruhiro and the others were trainees, so it cost them 4 copper, even though they only went for 1, or sometimes 2 beers. They were well aware that it was wasteful spending. They had dropped to earning half, no, 1/3, of what they were making when Minato was around, so it wasn't unusual for them to have days when they earned less than 1 silver each. Haruhiro should be more frugal. He realized that much. Haruhiro's total assets, including what he had stored at the Yorozu Deposit Company, amounted to a little over 17 silver. A course badge cost 20 silver, so he was almost there. Though, even once he did get to 20 silver, he couldn't go out and buy his badge right that second. If he didn't have around 30 silver, he couldn't pay 20 silver all at once. It would have been nice if they'd let him pay for it in installments. A volunteer soldier, Haruhiro murmured, looking around the tavern. All of the customers had better equipment than Haruhiro and his group. Many volunteer soldiers wore their precious armor to the tavern, because they were afraid it would be stolen, but some wore only fancy clothes with expensive-looking swords at their hips. He couldn't help but feel painfully conscious of the overwhelming difference in their positions. I know. Renta lifted his face, sitting in a weird position with his chin resting on the table. Even if you don't say it, I know. Haruhiro, let me guess, buying our course badges and becoming fully fledged volunteer soldiers is our goal for the moment. Yeah, but somehow you just don't care. It doesn't get you fired up. That's what you're thinking, isn't it? I've got real complicated feelings about you being able to guess what I'm thinking. You're so rude. I could knock your block off. You want that? Sorry, don't apologize so quick. The conversation goes nowhere. It's boring. Banter with me some more. Do it, idiot. You're such a pain to deal with. But, Moguzo groaned lowly, it does feel like we've lost sight of our goal. Kinda. It wasn't like this before. Who'd have thought? Renta turned his face on its side, his cheek against the table, that it'd change this much. Just losing Minato made everything change this badly. Haruhiro nearly snapped, tried to hold himself back, but he couldn't. What do you mean we just lost Minato? Don't talk like that. Yeah, Renta nodded. Sorry, don't apologize so quick. It throws me off balance. You're such a pain to deal with. Haruhiro considered slugging him, but he didn't want to waste energy, swinging his fists over someone like Renta. A goal, huh? Haruhiro looked around the tavern again. As he did, his eyes stopped on a familiar face, and it felt like his heart had stopped. Renji, Haruhiro and the others were seated around a table, in a dark corner of the first floor. Renji and his group on the other hand were at a good table in a bright spot near the bar. No, it may not have been a better or worse spot, but Haruhiro could never bring himself to sit in a spot that stood out like that. It wouldn't suit our position, our status, our rank, and many other things. That's the sense I get. Whoa, Renta had spotted Renji too. That's one showy get-up Renji's got on there. Moguzo ducked his head, as if he had just been reprimanded. It's incredible, they sure said it. That's a really showy outfit, even though his silver hair is already enough to draw attention to. Renji's wearing a battle surcoat with black fur trim over top of his armor. That sword leaning against his table looks awesome too. How did Renji get his hands on that thing? Did he buy it? It looks pretty expensive. Or did he find it somewhere? And if he did, where was that somewhere? It's not just Renji. The guy with the buzz cut next to him, Ron, has some fine-looking armor on, and Adachi with his black-rimmed glasses is wearing a lustrous black robe that looks expensive too. As for Sasa, since she's showing enough skin that remind me of Barbara-sensei, did she become a thief? Maybe. She was beautiful to begin with, so, honestly, she's looking pretty sexy. Chibi-chan, who's kneeling on the floor next to Renji for some reason, must be their priest, but Chibi-chan's priest clothes are clearly different from Manoto and Mary's. The fabric is high quality, and there are decorative touches on the edges. They're rookies, right? Renta stared, dumbfounded. They've been volunteer soldiers for the same period of time as us, so how is there such a huge gap? Trainees or badge holders, who had been volunteer soldiers recently, were called rookies. However, nobody who looked at Team Renji would think they were rookies. If someone tried to treat them like rookies, that person would be in for a rough time. We're never going to close that gap, thought Haruhiro. Forget closing it, the gap was only going to get wider. Haruhiro and his party would be stuck at the bottom. They'd always be the smallest of small fry, while Renji's group would just keep rising up. Someday, everyone would look at Renji and his party with deference. Even if he ran into them somewhere, he wouldn't be able to talk to them. Haruhiro and his group would be forgotten, while Renji's group would bask in the spotlight. How would things have been for us if Manoto didn't die? Manoto said we had become a good party. Did he really mean it? Manoto was a frequent at the Sherry's, so maybe he knew how Renji was doing. Didn't it frustrate him? Renji keeps steadily rising, but look at me. If I had better comrades, I could do the same. Manoto was human too, so it wouldn't be strange for those thoughts to cross his mind. Besides, why didn't Renji invite Manoto to join him? He was more than capable enough. If Manoto had joined Team Renji, their party might have been even more powerful. If he had, I'm sure Manoto wouldn't have died. He definitely wouldn't have died. At some point, Haruhiro had hung his head. Renta grabbed his arm saying, "Hey." Haruhiro looked up to see the silver-haired man looking down at him. "Huh, I hear Manoto kicked the bucket." It was that low, husky voice of Renji's that he would never forget. But Haruhiro started to say something, but then realized he didn't know what it was. But what? So what? With no expression on his face, Renji tossed what was in his hand to Haruhiro. When Haruhiro caught it, he saw it was a coin. Moguzo said, "Wah," pulling back in surprise. Renta's eyes went wide and he said, "Wah," before falling speechless. When Haruhiro saw the coin in his palm, his right hand began to tremble. It was the first time he'd actually seen one, but it was probably real. A gold coin. Consolation money. Take it, Renji said, then turned on his heel and walked away. "Don't. Haruhiro rose to his feet. The blood was rising to his head. He wanted to chase after Renji and slug him good. He didn't, though. That seemed dangerous. In the end, he just chased after him and stopped him. Renji, wait, hey, wait, I said. Renji finally stopped, looked annoyed. What? No, Haruhiro gulped. Scary. He's seriously scary. What's with this intimidating aura? It's just not normal. Listen, I can't. Well, how should I say this? I can't accept this. It feels, I don't know, wrong somehow. I see. Renji extended his right hand. Haruhiro expected more trouble, but Renji's not really objecting. Well, I'm glad he's not. While feeling enough relief to last a lifetime, Haruhiro placed the gold coin in Renji's right hand. After he did, he regretted it just a little. A gold coin. 1 gold is equal to 100 silver. Renji then left without another word. When Haruhiro got back to the table, Rena attacked him. You idiot! You damned idiot! Why did you give it back? You could have just kept it. If we'd split it 3 ways, that'd have been 34 silver for me, and 33 silver each for you and Moguzo. You moron! Why are you getting the extra silver? Because I'm me? Duh! Damn it! What a waste! If we'd taken the money, we could have easily bought our course badges. I don't think. Moguzo furrowed his brow and frowned. I don't think that would be right. If we bought our badges that way, Minato probably wouldn't be happy. I feel like I care. Renta spat venomously. He's gone now, anyway. Thinking about how he'd feel isn't going to do us a lick of good. Damn it, that was a gold coin. You know, I'm amazed he can just give it away. Just how much money does that bastard Renji have? Meanwhile, here I am with just 3 silver. 3 silver? Haruhiro stared hard at Renta's curly hair. You're kidding, right? Why do you only have that much? What did you spend it all on? Oh, shove off. I spent it on lots of stuff. Lots of stuff. How I spend my money is none of your business. Keep it up, so you'll never buy your badge. Don't you dare say that after pissing away the best chance I had at getting one. This isn't going to work, said Haruhiro, resting his elbows on the table, and hanging his head. At this rate, things aren't going to work. I'm not talking about Minato. It's not about that. This is a problem with us. Because, on that one point, you're right, Renta. Minato is gone now. Renta snorted. I'm telling you, I've been thinking that all along. You just think it, Moguzo said in a strong tone. We're all falling apart, said Haruhiro, biting his lip. It's not just Mary. Lately, I haven't had a proper conversation with you or Shihoru either. It wasn't like this before. Renta rested his cheeks on his palms, looking to the side. Let's all get along, is it? But can we do that? After all this time, can we do it, or can't we? That, I don't know, but we have to do it. The first thing Haruhiro did was try talking to Yum and Shihoru as often as he could. By the way, this morning, how'd it go for you? Did you wake up all right? The same as usual. I see. By the way, last night, what did you have for dinner? The same as usual. Oh, I see. By the way, last night, I met Renji. It was amazing. Oh, you aren't interested. By the way, for lunch, what did you bring? Bread. I see. By the way, are you tired? By the way. It was starting to look like by the way was his catchphrase. They never outright ignored him, but they did the absolute least they could to answer, so it was pretty depressing. Does she even enjoy life? He wondered. Well, then again, I'm not enjoying life much at the moment, either. In the evening, after heading back to Alterna and selling off their loot from the old city of Demuro, they had earned 1 silver and 15 copper each. Normal for their standards. Haruhiro headed back to the lodging house without stopping by the tavern. After taking a bath, he was squatting in the hallway when Yum walked by, fresh from a bath of her own. Oh, Yum! Yum stopped, but she didn't look his way. She was drying her hair with a towel. She always had her hair up in braids, so she looked like a different person with it down. The awkward silence continued a few seconds. So, where's Shihoru? Our room. I see, Haruhiro stood up, scratching his neck. Are you mad? Yum's not mad, really. But, you seem like it. Yum's telling you she's not mad, okay? Or did you do something Yum should be mad about? Haru-kun, I might have. What did you do? I invited Mary to join the party without consulting you or Shihoru. I don't think we could have continued as we were, but we rushed things, I think. Really, I didn't make that decision entirely by myself. But, then whose fault is it? Kikawa introduced Mary to us. Me, Renta, and Moguzo made the decision. So, well, I guess the blame goes to all three of us. That's not it, huh? It's not? Don't you get it? Yum, it's not, alright. Yum wiped her face with the towel. That's not how it is, see? Haru-kun, you dummy. Huh, wait. While Haruhiro started to reach out towards Yum, then pulled his hand back. Huh, Yum. Hey, what do you mean? You don't understand a thing. Haru-kun, it's because you're like that. That's why Yum and Shihoru ended up like this. No, but Haruhiro looked down. I don't get it. Not like that. I mean, you two won't talk to me. How am I supposed to know if you won't tell me? Yum's not so good at relating her feelings to others. Yum can't do it so well. And Shihoru's got it even worse than Yum. Well, neither am I. Haruhiro came close to shouting, but he restrained himself. Neither am I. At talking and stuff, it's not something I'm particularly good at. Besides, I was in shock too. Yeah, so it was the same for all of us, wasn't it? That's right, it's the same for all of us. It's all of our fault. Then, Yum said with a sob, it's not anyone's fault it turned out like this. We're all to blame. With Monado, we were 6 comrades, weren't we? Was Yum the only one who felt that way? Is Yum wrong? You're not wrong. That's right, thought Haruhiro. Yum's not wrong. I'm the one who was wrong. Monado had said they'd become a good party. Minato, Haruhiro, Renta, Moguzo, Yum, and Shihoru. The 6 of them together had been one party. It was true. Monado had stood head and shoulders above the rest of the group. Still, Monado couldn't have done anything and everything by himself. At the very least, they had done things as a group that Monado wouldn't have been able to do alone. Monado must have been well aware of that. That was why, even if Renta was selfish, Haruhiro was bumbling and overdependent. Moguzo was slow and stupid. Yum was clumsy and awkward, and Shihoru was cautious to the point of cowardice. Monado had never complained, because they were all inexperienced or worse. They'd known that if even one of them went missing, the group wouldn't function. That was why Monado had brought them all together. Each one of them supplemented the other's weaknesses. With the 6 of them together, Haruhiro and the others were one party. Whether good or bad, everything that happened affected them all. When times were hard, they were hard for everyone. Because, individually, they weren't strong. The least they could do was all share their pain and suffering. But Haruhiro hadn't tried to do that. He had just used the easygoing relationship between guys to commiserate over beer with Renta and Moguzo. How had Yum and Shihoru felt about that? They must have felt ostracized and lonely. Sorry, Yum. In the moment he started to say that, Haruhiro suddenly understood why Monado had apologized to him as he lay dying. That day, Monado had praised each of them, but he had said nothing about Haruhiro, and because of that, Haruhiro had been worried. Monado must have been concerned about that. That guy. In an instant, he couldn't see anything. Could the tears really overflow this quickly? What little composure he had was easily washed away. Haruhiro crouched down. That guy was so silly. Minato, what were you apologizing for? It was fine. Really, it didn't matter. You should have done something else. You had bigger worries. You were dying, right? You knew it was bad, didn't you? Before you apologized to me, there must have been other things you wanted to say. You didn't have to apologize to me, though it was so like you to do it. You said it yourself, Monado, that you felt like you were not the sort of person that anyone should be treating as a comrade. It wasn't true. Absolutely not. How could it have been? Why? Why did you have to die? Don't die. Don't go dying on us like that. Haru-kun. Yum crouched down and gave him a hug. Yum was crying too. As they both sobbed, Yum patted Haruhiro on the back. the shoulders, and the head. When their cheeks touched, both were soaked with tears. He heard Yum crying at his ear. Haruhiro held Yum tight and wept. He lost track of how long they stayed like that for. He felt like he had cried until he could cry no more. Yum had stopped crying a while ago too. But yet, they didn't separate. He couldn't find a good opening to break it off. It felt weird. Now they were just sort of hugging. She's so soft, so warm. No, no, stop. Don't think about it. If I think about it, this'll turn out bad. There's no guarantee I won't get into a weird mood. Of course, I'm pretty sure that's not what Yum wants. Neither do I. How do I say it? To me, she's a comrade, or something like that. Just a comrade. Haru-kun, Yum suddenly said, and Haruhiro gave such a flustered and awkward, yeah, that it made him hate himself a little. You know, Yum. She went on. Yeah, he stammered. Yum's gonna try her best, she said, hugging him tighter. No, that feels good and all. But could you please stop? And what do you mean? Try your best. At what? With Mary. Dunno if we can get along. But Yum will try. Oh, that. Sure. Well, it would help a lot, I guess. Do you think Yum can do it? To be honest, Yum's not so sure. Yum thinks Mary-chan hates her, you know. Huh? You think that? I don't think so. It's just once in a while. But when Yum looks into her eyes, they're so cold, like the looks she gives and her expression. Nah, that's not just for you, Yum. Mary's equally cold to everyone. She is. If that's the case, maybe it's okay. Doesn't make her feel any more friendly, though. Well, fair enough. You may have a point there. Do you think Yum can do it? Yum'll do her best, but Yum has a request for Haru-kun. A request? For me? What? Yum just found out. When someone hugs her tight like this, it really calms her down. So, hug Yum more. Yum wants you to cheer her up, you know. I don't mind, I guess. He stammered. He wondered, is this okay? But he then decided, it's probably okay. He was just encouraging her. He didn't have any ulterior motives. It was purely something he was doing to encourage her. Here goes, he said. When Haruhiro hugged her tightly as he could, Yum let out a little moan. Don't do that. I'm just doing this to cheer you up, he thought. It felt like something was ready to explode inside his head, but he couldn't very well ask her not to do that. He couldn't let himself lose here. He wasn't sure what would be a loss, and what would be a victory, but he knew that if he gave in here, it would be very, very bad. Haruhiro closed his eyes. Do your best, Yum. Yum nodded without a word. When he opened his eyes, Shihoru was standing at the other end of the corridor. Haruhiro froze. Oh, huh. Yum looked in that direction too. Oh, Shihoru started to stagger backwards. She was starting to freak out, but so were they. Hold on, how long had Shihoru been there? Why hadn't he or Yum noticed Shihoru approaching? Had they been too occupied to notice? Regardless, this was bad. It would be all too easy for her to misunderstand the situation. Or, rather, it would be harder to not misunderstand the situation. Haruhiro and Yum jumped away from one another at the same time. It's not what you think. It's not what you think. After speaking in unison, they turned to look at one another despite themselves. I'm sorry. Shihoru backed away. I didn't realize at all. Not before now. I am fat and dense, so I'm really sorry. No, listen, it's not what you think. Haruhiro protested. That's right. Yum was just asking Haru-kun to give her a hug. Yum, that's really not an appropriate explanation right now. Oh, why not? I'm sorry for interrupting. Shihoru rushed off. Yum groaned while rubbing her cheek with her hand. Well, it'll be fine so long as Yum explains it later. Yum and Shihoru share a room anyway, so that's what Yum'll do. I'm counting on you to do that. Haruhiro scratched his neck and sighed. He stole a glance at Yum. This is no good. I'm feeling kind of embarrassed. He should never have hugged a girl he didn't really have special feelings for like that. What would he do if those feelings started to grow inside him because he did? No, they're not going to, but still. When he left the lodging house the next morning, Shihoru suddenly apologized to him. I'm sorry. I was convinced you two were in that sort of relationship. I'm sorry I jumped to conclusions. Yum explained to me what had happened, so the apology was fine, but he did think he'd have been happier with her not bringing it up in front of Renta and Moguzo. Relationship. Renta's nostrils flared as he drew in close to Haruhiro's face. What is this about a relationship? What kind? And between who? Him. Haruhiro leaned back a little. It's nothing. It's not nothing. Now is it? Tell me. Talk. Spill it. Renta shouted. Listen. Shihoru said herself that she jumped to conclusions, didn't she? Haruhiro defended. Yeah. I'm asking what happened that would make her jump to conclusions. Now, listen. Yum interjected. She'd better not be about to say something she shouldn't again. He would have liked for his fears to be for naught, but things went about the same as always. So, yesterday, she was having Haru-kun hug her, you see, and Shihoru saw that. That's all it was. Moguzo's eyes bulged out. Wah. Whoa. 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 Wah ah. Renta's eyeballs nearly flew out of his skull. What? Seriously? How did that happen? Are you serious? When did you and Haruhiro get to second base? What's second base? No, whatever second base is. You meant I didn't go there. That's not it. We were. How is that not it? You were trying to do her, weren't you? You two were getting hot and busy when Shihoru walked in on you, but you panicked and stopped. Right, you stopped halfway. Haru-kun was crying. See, Yum explained. You don't need to tell him that, Haruhiro said. Huh, crying. Orenta looked from Haruhiro to Yum, then scratched his curly hair. Oh, that's all. That's how it is. So, what? Let me guess. It was a tearful parting. Huh, stupid. Haruhiro got himself rejected, and Yum was doing it to console him out of pity. So, that's how it was. I see now. You're totally off base, but I don't want to waste any more time explaining it to you. Well, anyway, Yum continued, with her usual laid-back attitude. Haruhiro envied her for that. She's decided she's gonna try and be friends with Mary-chan. So, Shihoru will too. She said she'd try to cooperate. Shihoru looked down at the ground, clasping her staff tightly. I have zero confidence that I can do it, but I'll try to do what I can. I guess. Be friends. Renta frowned as hard as he could. With Mary, that's not possible. I mean, come on, you know she has no intention of being friendly, right? Moguzo hung his head. But it's a bit tough the way things are. I wish we could just get her to at least heal us properly. You know, Mary wasn't just lacking in cooperation. There were issues with her performance as a healer too. As Moguzo had said, she wouldn't heal them normally. More specifically, she would leave minor wounds untreated. Even if they asked her to heal them, it was no good. They would either get ignored or flatly rejected. Obviously, if a wound impacted their ability to move around or was life-threatening, she'd heal it for them. But they had issues with her willingness to leave a comrade in pain. Minato hadn't been like that. Whenever someone had gotten a scratch, he'd healed it right away. It let them feel that, even if they got hurt a bit, things would be fine. They couldn't feel secure that way with Mary. They worried that, when they really needed it, Mary might refuse to heal them, that she might abandon them. The thought gave all of them cold sweat. So, anyway, Haruhiro looked around to each of his comrades except Renta. He left Renta out. We need a relationship of trust, I guess you could say, with Mary. If we don't start by building that, we can't move forward. Mary may have her own reasoning behind how she does things. Because we don't understand what it is, that may be why things aren't going smoothly. Renta scoffed. It's just her having an awful personality. She's sick, man. Sick. What she's got is chronic congenital maliciousness syndrome. There's no treating that. But we need a priest, don't we? Here's a thought. Haruhiro, you be the priest, okay? Goodbye, Mary. Problem solved. Yeah, man. Am I smart? Awesome. Nice idea. Honestly, Haruhiro did consider it an option. but only as a last resort. He felt the thief's job suited him, skulking around on his own to scout ahead, and always looking to attack the enemy from behind. He wanted to continue to grow as a thief. Besides, after talking with Yum yesterday, he had realized something. Renta, yeah, it was me, you, and Moguzo who decided to add Mary to the party, right? And that decision was a huge mistake, which is why I'm saying we should just kick her out already. We added her to the party, so Mary's one of us now. Renta seemed to be looking for a comeback to that, but he shut his mouth and stared at the ground awkwardly. Listen, I get it. Haruhiro grasped his right wrist with his left hand. It's not easy to suddenly treat someone like an equal member of the group. Mary's not doing herself any favors with the way she acts. Still, if we're ganging up on her 5-on-1 all the time, she won't be able to fit in, even if she wants to. Mary is not just a machine that walks around and dispenses healing magic for us. That's right. Huh? Said Yum, bringing a finger to her chin. Mary is cold to Yum and everyone, but maybe Yum and everyone have been being cold to Mary, too. Yeah, Moguzo nodded slowly. That could be it. Maybe, Shihoru said, mumbling without confidence. She could actually be a good person, like she's a tsundere or something. Hell no. Renta looked the other way. Not a chance. I wouldn't even give you 10,000 to 1 odds on that. She's a nasty woman, that rotten to the core. No matter what you say, my opinion won't change. We should cut ties with her. Stupid Haruhiro can be our priest. If I were a priest, no matter what happened, I wouldn't heal you. Renta, I mean, you're a dread knight. The dark god Skullhell and the god of light Lumiris are enemies, right? I'm not enough of a softie that I'd go healing my enemies. Chi-Chi, you're disqualified as a priest. Disqualified? Moguzo can. No, we'd be in trouble without a warrior. Fine, Yum, you do it. Yum wants her wolf dog, so she's not given up being a hunter. Ah, you self-centered girl. Then Shihoru, how about you? I don't think I'd make a very good healer. I'm sure if someone got hurt, I'd start to panic before I could heal them. You're useless. All of you. Completely useless. This is hopeless. This is a group of people who are naturals at being useless. If that's how it's gonna be. Renta cleared his throat. If that's how it's gonna be, there's only one option. Even that woman is better than nothing. Let's just pray that she actually is a tsundere. Though, if she were a tsundere, obviously, the one she'd go dear for is me. You know, that's kind of not so bad, I guess. Obviously, she wouldn't go dear for Renta, I think. Oh, shut up, Moguzo. Moguzo, did Moguzo just hit me with a witty retort? Hey, seriously, I can't believe this. All Haruhiro had done was greet her. That was all he'd done. So why did she have to glare icy daggers at him? Right now, Haruhiro felt like she was mocking him, sneering at him. He was sure she was thinking go die in a fire, or get lost, scumbag, at him. After tormenting Haruhiro with her absolute zero stare, she returned a curt good morning and added, hurry up and go, I'll follow you. Things continued along that note. Even so, on the road to the old city of Damoro, Yum and Shihoru made a valiant effort, trying to talk to Mary several times, about where she lived, what she'd had for breakfast and dinner, how long it had been since she'd become a volunteer soldier. No matter how you looked at it, they were harmless questions, but Mary never gave a straight answer. Answers like who knows, and food were on the not so bad end, but once she snapped, what does it matter? Yum and Shihoru couldn't bring themselves to keep talking. She's a difficult opponent. Well, no, she's not an opponent. She's our ally. She's one of us. Even if they couldn't get a conversation going, they at least wanted to improve their teamwork. In the morning, they got lucky and encountered a group of 3 goblins, so they prepared for a difficult battle. If they could come together to pull through a somehow difficult fight, they might be able to see some way forward. Moguzo, Renta, each of you take one. Yum and I will take the other. Shihoru and Mary, back up Renta and Moguzo. He tried subtly asking Mary for backup, But even as Shihoru's shadow beat, and magic missile struck the enemy, Mary just stood there. When Renta took a light cut to his left arm, she ignored him even as he cried out in exaggerated pain. When Moguzo got scared after a shallow cut sliced his temple open, she shouted, "Don't back down after something that trivial. You're a warrior, aren't you?" And that was it. Damn it. Don't act so high and mighty. You aren't doing anything. Renta forcibly kicked the goblin away from himself, then stepped into the space that opened up, closing the distance and thrusting his longsword out. Straight. Anger. The goblin squealed as the sword burst through its neck. It thrashed around for a little while, then eventually fell silent. The sword skills used by dread knights, the dark arts of battle, avoided close combat, preferring to strike from outside the enemy's range with hit and away tactics. What he did there didn't feel quite like that. But all's well that ends well. Now we're down to only 2 enemies. No. With a roar, Moguzo moved from locking blades with the enemy to making it stagger backwards with wind, then quickly followed up by slamming his blade into it. Its skull split. The goblin crumpled, leaving only one left. Mark M. Park. Shihoru drew elemental sigils with her staff, chanting a spell, and a fist-sized bead of light slammed into the goblin's chest. "Kia!" it cried. The bead of light from a magic missile spell packed around the same force as being punched by an adult. The goblin was thrown off balance for only a moment, but that created an opening. Yum closed in on the goblin, trying to cut it down with her machete. Brush clearer. The goblin was taken by surprise, but nimbly managed to jump back, and to the side to avoid it. Its back was now facing Haruhiro. Now, Haruhiro gave it a thought, and his body moved into action on its own. Without taking a breath, he executed a backstab. The dagger pierced the goblin's back, as if settling into a place it had always belonged, then burst through its belly. "That's definitely how it feels when I pull it off." The goblin trembled violently as the strength drained from its body. As Haruhiro lowered the tip of his dagger, and pushed it into the goblin with his shoulder, the blade slid free. The goblin fell face first to the ground unmoving. "Gwahahaha!" Renta cackled loudly as he cut a claw from the goblin's corpse. "Our teamwork was utter crap, but with my strike leading the way, we won big. That's just how awesome I am. It's become so predictable. It's boring. But, come on, my hand hurts. Mary, heal it." Mary completely ignored Renta, walking briskly over to Moguzo. "Sit." "Okay." Moguzo was ordered to sit like he's a dog. He lowered his hips to the ground. Mary touched his forehead, the back of his head, and then finally his temple. When Moguzo grimaced, she said something in a quiet voice, but Haruhiro couldn't pick up what it was. Mary made the sign of the hexagram, and chanted a prayer. "O light, may Lumira's divine protection be upon you. Cure. If we wait until the battle's over, she's relatively willing to heal us." Haruhiro muttered to himself as he collected the goblin pouches. Inside were 2 silver coins and 2 pretty stones, as well as a smattering of fangs, gears, and other small things, depending on the price of the stones. They were looking at about 4 silver. "Hey, Mary, you're done with Moguzo. Heal me next. Yours is just a scratch." "No, it's not. Look, it's bleeding. Even if it is stopping now, it is. Try putting some spit on it. Also, don't address me without an honorific. You're going to make my anger boil over." Eek, was about how it went, with her being unwilling to heal Renta very often. However, Renta tended to make a big deal out of every little thing, so he would make a big fuss even over minor injuries. Minato might have looked like he was being generous, but he had actually been pretty nervous. He hadn't been able to feel at ease unless all of them were in perfect condition, so he'd treated every injury right away. Maybe that had been unnecessary. When Haruhiro reflected on it, he realized Minato may have taken it too far. When it came to Renta, he felt Minato had been too soft on him. After clearing away the goblin corpses, Haruhiro came right out and asked, "Is it an issue with how you do things maybe? Like, Mary, Do you have some sort of method you've settled on for how you work as a healer, or something? Huh? She snapped. That was a pretty scary, huh? There, Haruhiro, wish you would stop doing that. Haruhiro somehow managed to stop himself from faltering, and roused himself to keep going. Well, I was thinking, maybe there are different types, as far as priests go or something, because, well, I don't know about all that. I don't have much experience. Mary was about to say something, but then, maybe deciding it was too much effort, she sighed. Then, she crossed her arms and looked away to the side. Who knows? There it was. Her who knows. Haruhiro got upset. Could you explain it to me? I'm a thief, so I don't know about priests, but if I just keep thinking, I don't get it, I'm never going to get it, and I don't think that's okay. So, that's just your opinion. I think it's fine as is. It's not fine at. Haruhiro hurriedly took a deep breath. Not good. I nearly snapped there. That was close. I need to calm down. She makes me so mad. Though, what is with her? Why does she have to be so hard-headed? I'll respect your privacy, and won't try to delve too deep. But our roles in combat, the flow, there are those things to consider. I want to talk more about those things as a group. If you don't like my work, why not just come out and say it? I'll leave right now. That's not it. I just want to. Then we have no problem here, right? Someone, please tell me, is there some way to communicate properly with Mary? Maybe there isn't. It sure doesn't feel like there is. After that, Yum and Shihoru determinedly continued trying to talk with Mary, but they too got crushed every time. Haruhiro tried to start a discussion with her a number of times, but she wouldn't even respond. By the evening, they had ticked 7 goblins down. Their earnings were 2 silver and 5 copper per person, which was kind of okay, if they chose to think of it that way. However, Haruhiro couldn't help but compare himself with Renji, who had thrown a gold coin their way, as if he wouldn't miss it, and he ground his teeth as he felt a tinge of pain. Mary left as soon as she received her share, so the 5 of them ate, and then went to Sherry's tavern. There are a whole lot of folks here. Huh, Yum doesn't want to drink alcohol, so Yum will have juice instead. Me too. I don't want alcohol. It's very lively in here. This was Yum and Shihoru's first time in a tavern, so they were very busy staring at and being nervous about things. Renta acted like a regular, saying, "Hey, girls, calm down, okay? It's just a tavern. Nothing out of the ordinary. Come on now, seriously." But the 2 of them probably weren't listening to a word he said. Soon the waitress came over, and they each ordered drinks and paid her. Haruhiro chose to get lemonade instead of beer today. It was a drink made by adding lemon and honey to naturally carbonated water from the Tenryu Mountains, and he was quite fond of it. The problem is with Mary. Really? Haruhiro started. Yum replied, "Yeah," with a nod. Yum and Shihoru tried talking to her a lot, you know, but she wouldn't give us the time of year. Shihoru quickly corrected her. "Yum, you mean time of day, not year." But Yum just blinked in confusion. "It is, Yum." She was shortened that it was year, so that's it. It was time of date, huh? Not shorten, certain. Also, it's not time of date. It's time of day, huh? Yum got it wrong again. Yum keeps making mistakes like that, huh? This is our only choice, Renta said, drawing a finger across his neck. We ought to hurry up and do this to that woman. Got it? It seemed Renta really liked making that decapitating gesture. Maybe he thought it looked cool. If he did, he was even more mistaken than Yum. Moguzo said, gazing in the direction of the door. Speak of the devil, as they say, Haruhiro thought. It was Mary. Mary had come to the tavern. It was brief, but Mary glanced in their direction. They were almost certain that she had seen them. She pretended not to. Mary went deep inside, to an open seat at the counter, and sat there. Renta slammed the table. The hell? What's with her attitude? We're in the same party, for God's sake. Normally, you'd at least give a little nod in our direction. The thing about Mary-chan is, Yum arched her eyebrows and pouted angrily. Normal isn't really something that applies with her, you know. What she did just now stung Yum's heart a little bit. though. Shihoru kept rubbing her lips together, but we didn't wave to her or anything, either. I think both sides are to blame, maybe. Haruhiro scratched his neck. Yeah, sorta. Like, we expected her to ignore us, and we braced ourselves for it. So, lo and behold, something like that. Maybe it's not good for us to do that either. Don't give me that bullshit. Why do we need to go out of our way to worry about her feelings? See, Renta, you actin' like this is why us girls all hate you, Yum said. Oh, shut up. I don't want to hear a girl with tiny tits acting like she canna speak for all women. Don't call them tiny. Tiny, 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 tiny. Merg, Yum moaned. Renta, no matter where you go, you never stop being terrible, Haruhiro said. It's none of your business, Haruhiro. Like I care about the expression on a girl's face. The only parts I look at are their boobs, their butts, their legs, and their upper arms. Shihoru looked at Renta as if she were looking at garbage. You make me sick, as a person. Harsh. Even Renta must have realized this was bad. I don't only look at the boobs, but legs, and upper arms. I don't care about their expression, but their face is important too, because even if you've got a hot body, if your face is all gross, yeah, I'm not touching that. Huh, that's strange. I feel like I'm getting glared even harder now. Why? Someone just Moguzo pointed at Mary, started talking to Mary. Oh, Haruhiro blinked. You're right. It wasn't anything to be surprised about, but it was unexpected. What's more, the man who was chatting to Mary with a smile was someone Haruhiro knew. That said, they had only spoken once. That gentle face, the armor and cape, that sword, his generally whitish attire. Huh? That's Shinohara from Orion. Orion? Renta cocked his head to the side. Whoa, you're serious? If we're talking Orion, they're a pretty famous clan. Wait, Shinohara, if I remember, he's the master of Orion. Well, not like it matters. Who cares what that woman does? Oh, drinks are here. Let's have a toast. A toast. Cheers. Cheers, Moguzo responded. He was the only one who did. Haruhiro clacked his wooden mug together with just Moguzo, Yum, and Shihoru's. They then took a sip of lemonade. It was sweet, sour, and delicious. Hey, Haru-kun. Yum tugged at his sleeve. What's a clan? Clans are. Haruhiro didn't know much about clans himself, but they were groups or teams that volunteer soldiers would put together in pursuit of some goal. Most parties were 5 or 6 people, and he had heard that was because a priest's all-important protection, which was a buffing spell, targeted a maximum of 6 people. However, there were powerful enemies that 6 people alone couldn't hope to defeat, as well as dangerous enemy territories which they couldn't enter with only 6 people. There were scenarios which required multiple parties to coordinate with each other, and the clan framework had apparently been created in order to facilitate that. There are a number of famous clans too, like the Berserkers and Iron Knuckle, or there's the all-female Wild Angels clan, for instance. Oh, right, Orion's famous too. Look, Renta gestured towards Shinohara with his thumb. There are 7 crests in an X shape on his cape, right? That's the symbol of Orion. There are probably a few of them around. True enough, there were customers with the same cape as Shinohara's dotted around. Shinohara had said that they came to Sherry's tavern fairly often. Haruhiro had always meant to go over and say hi if he ran into them here. Maybe now was the time. Yeah, no, I don't want to interrupt him while he's talking to Mary. It can wait. But still, what was Shinohara's connection with Mary? Shinohara seemed to be doing all the talking, with Mary just making occasional short comments and nodding along. But she didn't seem to be bothered by it at all. Actually, if anything, she seemed apologetic. Eventually, Shinohara walked away and left Mary. She watched his back for a while as he left, then looked down and took a sip of her drink. Renda chuckled evilly. Those 2 are doing it. I didn't get that vibe, Haruhiro said uncertainly. Haruhiro, you, pal, are seriously blind. No matter how you look at it, that was totally the vibe they had going. They're totally doing it. 100%, I guarantee it. I'm gonna go have a word with Shinohara. Hey, you bastard, don't ignore me, you're making me sad. While thinking Renta could go ahead and be sad all he wanted, Haruhiro started to get up from his seat, and then the tavern suddenly became noisy. The reason why was immediately apparent. Soma, hey, if it isn't Soma, it's Soma, Soma, Soma. The volunteer soldiers were all calling out one name. Who's Soma? Must be that guy. A group of 6 people had just come into Sherry's tavern. He's the one at the front. He looked like he was still a young man, but he was different from the rest. Way too different. For a start, his equipment was unique. What is that black armor that covers his whole body, yet fits him tightly, looks incredibly light, and has no angular spots whatsoever? It had been probably made from countless little metal plates fitted together, but there was an orange light that leaked out from inside it here and there. It flashed on and off, as if it were breathing. He wore a long asymmetrical skirt, which looked like it was part of the armor, and covered his lower body, but that just makes it look cooler. The long sword he was wearing over his back had a curved blade. If there's anyone who's not completely enthralled by that sinister yet beautiful workmanship, they clearly don't know what they're talking about. The small sword hanging at his hip was incredible too. Honestly, just that one would be enough for me. I want it. The man who carried all those weapons and armor, which were clearly on another level, had a face that was extraordinary, too. He's got clear-cut features. They're not especially manly, or beautiful in a more neutral way. It's not like that. But if he gazed at someone with those almond eyes that are so full of cool-headed composure, intensity and sorrow, I don't think anyone could stay calm. The men and women following Soma were clearly no ordinary people themselves. One was a swarthy man with his hair in dreadlocks who had senpaku eyes, and wore silver armor so radiant it was blinding. He's huge, Haruhiro thought. He's got to be taller than Moguzo. He seemed well built, but because of his small head, he came across as lanky. The man walking right behind him, in contrast, was rather small. He had a childish face, but eyes that were thick with too much mucus. I feel like I'll get cursed if I meet his gaze. Was the man with long arms, much too long, who stood beside the little man even human? He wore a terrifying mask, so it was hard to be certain. But Haruhiro felt like he was some other kind of creature. The armor he wore, which looked as if he had wrapped metal and leather around his entire body, was abnormal, and the giant, saw-bladed sword strapped to his back looked dangerous. Still, when Haruhiro looked at the 2 women following after them, it was a nice refreshment for his eyes, and his brain felt like it might just melt away. Soma's party included 4 men, 2 women, and both of those women were beautiful. One was a sexy, mature lady of the cool beauty variety. She wore something like a dress that had a bold design which gave a peek at her breasts and legs. She was decked out with necklaces, rings, bracelets, a staff of the finest quality, a short sword, and more, but none of it felt excessive. That was because she herself was gorgeous enough that none of these things outshone her. The other one looked a little similar like Mary. It wasn't that their faces were similar, but she had that same inhuman beauty. Was she a beautiful young girl, or a beautiful woman? She looked like she could be around the same age as Haruhiro, but at the same time, she looked older. She wore a breastplate with delicate designs carved into it, but was otherwise lightly equipped. But she did have a sword. Was she a warrior? Female warriors were uncommon, but, setting that aside, what stunning silver hair! It was nothing like Renji's hair. Her hair looked as if it had been made by melting real silver and spinning it into thread. Her eyes looked like they had been inlaid with sapphires, and her skin was abnormally white. It was like snow. That was not just an expression. It truly did look like snow. Obviously, there had to be blood flowing through it, so there was the slightest red tinge. But her skin was radiant. Mary's nothing next to her. This woman's not human. I mean, she's got pointy ears. Isn't that an elf? There, Renta whispered. An elf? While Haruhiro stared so hard he forgot to blink, he parroted the words back. An elf? What's that? I don't know. but I do know. An elf, right? She's probably an elf. With a yo! Someone raced over to him. Someone this noisy could only be Kikawa. Hey, if it isn't Haruki, Renton, Moguchin, Yumipi, and Shihoran. You good. I'm great. Hey, did you see? Are you seeing right now? Soma's amazing, isn't he? Man, I didn't think I'd get the chance to see him. Talk about lucky. We're all lucky. Yes, see, he seemed even more wound up than last time. Was it because of Soma? Kikawa? Who's Soma? What? Haruki, you don't know Soma? Seriously, you're kidding me. That's like, no way. Soma's, the #1 volunteer soldier, the best volunteer soldier of volunteer soldiers. Well, in terms of ability there are some people who'd argue otherwise, but in name brand value, he's the top, hands down. It's my first time seeing him, too, though. He's different, so cool. If I were a woman, I'd want him to take me now. Soma, I love you. Yup, that's a lie. I don't feel that strongly about him. Still, he's awesome. I aspire to that, If I've got to be like someone, I want it to be him. And how? Renta's eyes were sparkling. If you're a man, if you're a volunteer soldier, that's what you've got to aim for. Damn, where do I get some of that armor? I wanna wear it. For me, Moguzo looked down and mumbled, I'd like a helmet, plated armor too, if possible. Then, I could do a little more. Shihoru looked pained, biting her lower lip. I want to learn more magic that can help everyone. What I have now isn't enough. For Yum wants armor too. Maybe Yum should do something about that, shouldn't she? She's not so good an archer, so she has to move up to the front a lot, For me, what should I say? Haruhiro still couldn't tear his eyes away from Soma's party. But, if he was honest, he didn't want to become like Soma the way Renta and Kikawa did. He wasn't even convinced he could close the gap between their group and Renji's. It's pointless, aspiring to be like someone, when there's no way you'll ever catch up. It's just stupid. Still, that didn't mean he thought things were fine as they were. He didn't. Haruhiro wanted to move forward, even if he couldn't be like Renji, racing up the stairs, skipping 1 or 2 steps with each stride. He was sure he could slowly and carefully ascend those stairs, 1 step at a time. Surely, that was what Monado had been trying to do. They could move at their own pace, making today better than yesterday, and tomorrow better than today. Obviously, just wishing for it to happen wasn't enough. He had to do something. What should I be doing and how? Should he save up money and learn skills, buy good equipment? Those things were important, but there was more to it than that. Monado said he was counting on me. Did that mean what I think? That he wanted me to do what he had been doing? Basically, to become the leader of the group. Can I do that? Someone probably has to. I know, but does it have to be me? I don't want to do it. I don't want to carry that burden. It's too much hassle. What about Minato? Did he choose to do it because he wanted to do it, and was happy doing it? Maybe not necessarily. Maybe it was hard, and he wanted to give up, but he gritted his teeth and pulled us all along. How can I say for sure that that wasn't the case? Oh, but, Kikawa had thrown his arm around Renta's shoulder, and started laughing at some point. Being able to do that with Renta is impressive. I didn't think I'd get to meet Soma. I heard Old Ishmael is his main stomping grounds, and he rarely ever comes back to Alterna. I'm so lucky I scare myself. No, I'm not actually scared of myself, though. Hey, Kikawa, let's go become buds with Soma and his gang. The way we are now, we can do it. You wanna go? You going? Renta, are we going? Kikawa and Renta stood at the same time. They couldn't seriously intend to talk to Soma, could they? Haruhiro lifted himself up in his chair, glancing around the tavern. Soma and his group were sitting at a table next to the counter, and a crowd was starting to gather there. Mary was alone, drinking something, alcoholic or otherwise. He couldn't see Shinohara anywhere. Had he headed off somewhere else? Sitting back in his seat, Haruhiro drank his lemonade. When he raised his face, His eyes met Yum's. Yum tilted her head to the side, as if to say, "Is something up?" Haruhiro shook his head as if to say nothing. Then he took another sip of his lemonade. "Well, no, it's not nothing. A leader, huh? Is that something I can be?" Haruhiro talked to he himself, whether he could or couldn't. For as long as he was breathing, time would continue to flow. When he went to sleep, the sun would rise. When the morning came, he would have to go to the old city of Damuro. They ambushed two goblins, wounding one with the preemptive attack. Renta and Yum took on the wounded goblin, while Moguzo and Haruhiro faced the unharmed one. The unharmed goblin wore a dented helmet and rudimentary chainmail, and was armed with a damaged sword. It was a pretty tough opponent, but, that said, Moguzo was far larger than it and had the upper hand in terms of strength, as well. It seemed like he should have been able to ram his way through its defense. But Moguzo didn't do that. Why not? Because Moguzo was afraid. True, Moguzo wasn't as reckless as Renta. However, he had good reason to be cautious. The goblin happened to be wearing a helmet, so Haruhiro noticed something while watching the two of them. With a helmet, you wouldn't die from a slight blow to the head. However, without one, even a grazing blow could cause serious injury, so you couldn't help but be cautious. The night before, Moguzo had said he wanted a helmet and plated armor, not a sharp and new bastard sword. It was defensive gear he wanted. With equipment that defended him better, he could throw himself into the fight fully. That was probably what he'd meant. Haruhiro spent most of his time thinking about how to get behind the enemy. He didn't wear armor, so every enemy attack was scary to him. It was only a little bit of an exaggeration to say that one slash could be the end of him, so he avoided them with everything he had. However, Moguzo had to face the enemy in a straight-up exchange of blows. If Moguzo were running around like Haruhiro, everything would turn into a total mess, because their roles were different. Haruhiro hadn't understood that. He hadn't seen anything. No, he hadn't tried to see anything. "Moguzo!" Haruhiro called out to Moguzo, slashing at the goblin as he did. The goblin turned in his direction. Haruhiro backed away. The goblin hesitated for a moment. Just a moment. The goblin spun back around to face Moguzo, but Moguzo was already thrusting his bastard sword at it. The bastard sword buried itself deep inside the goblin's flank. But these creatures don't die that easily. The goblin shrieked, "Gyagya," and tried to swing its sword. "I won't let you do that." Haruhiro attacked the goblin from behind. He aimed for its hand, the goblin's sword hand, its wrist. Slap! He wasn't able to lop it off, but his dagger reached the bone, and the goblin lost its grip on its sword. Moguzo grunted and gave his bastard sword a twist. The goblin screamed, trying to grab a hold of Moguzo. Haruhiro grabbed hold of the goblin's helmet with his left hand, tearing it off with all his might, then slammed his dagger in under its chin. There, even after all that, it took some time for the goblin to stop struggling. There were lives at stake here. Both sides were serious. It didn't get any more dead serious than this. There was no way it was going to be easy. Hadn't Manoto said that? Just like they didn't want to die, the goblins didn't want to die either. They killed them, taking their stuff, eating and living on. For the other goblin, Shihoro weakened it with magic, and Renta struck the final blow. Once the battle ended, while Haruhiro was collecting the goblin pouches, Mary brought the 5 fingers of her right hand to her forehead, pressing on her brow with the middle finger. That was really quick. Haruhiro nearly missed it. However, he did manage to see it properly. That's the sign of the hexagram. Manoto often did that after we beat the enemy. I'm a little surprised. She doesn't seem like the type to do that. Then again, I don't really know her. I don't know anything about Mary. I've never tried to learn. During their afternoon break, he said to Moguzo, "Hey, I'll pitch in a bit." "Moguzo, it doesn't matter if it's a cheap one, but buy yourself a helmet. Maybe look for some used armor in your size too. Even if you can't find any, see what it would cost to have it fixed up. That will give us an idea of the price." "Huh, really? But I couldn't." "I don't think you should have to pay for it." Haruhiro, it's fine. Really, for now, this here is all I need, Haruhiro said, tapping his dagger. If you don't have all your equipment together, it's a problem for everyone. So, it's in my own interest to pay. See, iron armor is expensive, right? If we were making a lot of money, I'd let you handle it, but since we aren't, it's a bit much to expect you to be able to pay for it all yourself. Ah, when you say it like that, Yum agrees. Yum gave a relaxed smile. Moguzo, if you buy defensive gear, Yum'll donate to the cause. Let's all go looking for a cute helmet together. Okay, Shihoru hesitantly raised her hand. In that case, I will too. I can't spare much, but I can put in a little. No matter what happens, you aren't getting a single copper out of me, okay? Just saying, Renta declared. That's fine. No one expected anything from you, Renta, Haruhiro said. Then he glanced over to see Mary's reaction. Mary was staring off into the distance, as if to say it wasn't her concern. Still, was it just Haruhiro's imagination when he thought she looked a little sad and lonely? It occurred to him that, if he could afford to next time, he should watch Mary during combat. She's just holding on to her staff. She never moves up. She barely ever heals us. She has no motivation. She's basically just standing there, was his current observation on Mary. But was it really true? The first goblins they encountered in the afternoon were a group of 3, so things were too hectic for him to observe what Mary did in combat. After that, they couldn't find any groups or individual goblins that looked like good targets, but on the way out of the old city of Damoro, they stumbled into a pair of 2 goblins. They had been walking right past each other, so it turned into a sudden melee. Shihoru and Mary, the rear team, didn't even have time to fall back. One of the goblins lunged at Mary. She gasped, "Don't just stare off into space." Renta body-checked the goblin, knocking it to the ground. "You stupid bitch. I wasn't staring off into space," she snapped. True, it hadn't looked like Mary was staring off into space. The other goblin tried to jump on Shihoru. Mary shouted out, clobbering it with a hearty swing of her priest's staff. That was the priest's self-defense skill, smash. It was one Monado had learned too, so he was sure of it. There were 2 enemies, so they were in a good position from the very beginning. While Haruhiro was eyeing the goblins' backs, he occasionally glanced over at Mary. "I thought so. The staff isn't just for show. She's learned the proper self-defense skills. She doesn't want to move up front, but she still protected Shihoru." What's more, when a goblin latched onto Moguzo, headbutting him in the chin, Mary watched everything that happened closely. Right after that, she turned away, as if she were thinking, "He's fine, no need to heal him. Mary's just standing there. She has no motivation." That's not it at all. Mary was watching the situation from the rear, making judgment calls every time a comrade was injured. She would even use her staff if she had to. With the battle over, Shihoru went and talked to Mary. Thank you for earlier." Mary looked away from her. "What are you talking about?" She doesn't have to say it like that. If she would just say, "You're welcome," or smile, then everyone would like Mary. It shouldn't be difficult. He's sure doing it would make life easier for Mary, too. So why doesn't she do it? After they went back to Alterna and sold their loot, he called out to her. He noticed she was about to leave without telling them. Mary, hold on a second." Mary scratched at her hair, turning around like it was a bother. "Did you still have some business with me? Like I said, you get scary over every little thing. I'm starting to think you want to be hated. Still, we're members of the same party, aren't we? It's got to be better to be liked than to be hated." I wish I had the guts to say that to her, but I can't. If I try to get too involved with her, Mary will probably run off. I get the feeling she'd say, "That's enough, goodbye," and drop out of the party. I wouldn't call it business, but would you like to come grab a meal with us? We can hit the tavern or something after that. "No, thank you." Why so polite? Mary looked down and away, furrowing her brow ever so slightly. Was she angry? She seemed embarrassed somehow. There's no real meaning behind it. "Oh, I see. Sorry to poke at you over a little thing like that. I don't really. Mary began to purse her lips but stopped looking down, and shaking her head left to right. Then she said, see you. Probably, the next word she had been about to utter was tomorrow. For Mary, who always left without a word, this was unusual, or it would have been unusual, but, ultimately, it never happened. Stopping with only those 2 words, Mary turned her back on Haruhiro and the others. Mary's a fast walker, but the way she was walking was strange, like she was getting flustered. Renta scoffed, yeesh, what an unlikable woman, seriously. Really? Moguzo stroked his chin. It was slight, but he had a beard growing. Your beard sure grows in thick, Moguzo. I feel like she's a little different today. Yum nodded along. Yeah, she was different today, huh? Today's Mary-chan was just a teensy bit cute. That's just a vague feeling Yum had though. You all know. Renta gave Yum the side eye. Don't just call anything and everything cute. Cute. Your cute applies to such a broad range. I don't even know what it means anymore. I don't need someone like you to understand. Renta, I don't want you to understand me. That is so not cute. Once they managed to calm Yum and Renta down, they went looking for a helmet for Moguzo. There was a shop out in the marketplace selling used iron helmets, and one type called a barbet was cheap. Barbots were forged from a single sheet of iron, so they were low-priced and they were simple as well. They were shaped like the big toe of a person's foot. When you wore it, your eyes, nose, and mouth were exposed through the T-shaped opening. At first glance, it looks like it would fall off easily, but there's leather wrapped around on the inside, so I guess not, Haruhiro thought. Renta stubbornly haggled the price down, and they got a barbet that was a perfect fit for Moguzo. Even if it was scratched and dented all over, it cost them 18 silver when the original price had been 42 silver. Of that, Haruhiro paid 3 silver, Yum and Shihoru 3 silver each, and Moguzo paid 8 silver. While they were eating at a stall, Renta said, well, I effectively put in 24 silver. Got it. You'd better be grateful, guys, and puffed out his chest proudly, which made Yum and Shihoru furrow their brows. Haruhiro was appalled, too, but, when he thought about it, Renta may have been right. Probably no one but the shameless Renta could have haggled that hard. 24 silver might have been an exaggeration, but they had probably saved around 10 silver thanks to Renta. Yeah, thanks, Renta, Haruhiro said seriously. Renta blinked in surprise and said, sure, then looked down. As long as you get it, it's my, merit, my value, my true worth, something like that. Anyway, since you guys tend to look down on me, take this to heart, for future reference. Seriously, I'm begging you to, honestly. Well, no, I won't beg. They had planned to look around at the armory after they ate, but it was already late, so they went to the tavern. Mary didn't seem to be there. Haruhiro had invited her to come, so that might actually have made her decide not to show herself here tonight instead. That woman is seriously uncute. She's even worse than Yum, Renta muttered. He seemed to be bitter that Mary hadn't said a single word of thanks after he'd helped her. I mean, she can't even give a proper hello, or thank you, or sorry. She's hopeless. Looks are all she's got going for her. Just her looks. Her looks are top-notch, though. Well, she's got nothing on that elf from Soma's party, though. But Moguzo stammered. He was still wearing his barbet. It seemed he was quite fond of it. It's not going to be easy to drink in that thing, Haruhiro thought. Before, when she healed me, she said sorry, Mary-san did. Huh, don't you lie, Moguzo, like she'd ever do that. It's true, it was when I hurt my head. Mary-san's hand touched the wound, and I groaned in pain, so she said sorry. Yeah, that did happen. Haruhiro remembered it too. He hadn't been able to hear her, but Mary had definitely said something to Moguzo that time. I see, that was an apology. She protected me too. Shihoru nodded. She's hard to approach, but I don't think she's nasty or heartless. She's not that sort of person. Mary-chan's a real cutie pie too, you all know, added Yum. So, I was watching Mary more closely today, Haruhiro said. end. He described to the others what he had noticed in combat. Mary was working hard to fulfill her role in her own way. It was just, she didn't tell them what she was thinking. She didn't speak nicely to them. And she had attitude problems. That was why they misunderstood. Now, this is just probably, but if we understand Mary's method, I think we can use her well. Still, I'm not sure if that's good enough. What's wrong with it? Renta guzzled down some beer, then snorted derisively. If that woman's doing her job, like you say, it's no problem, though I'm not convinced the woman really is. If you feel that way, Renta, it's already a problem. Does how I feel even matter to you guys? You're always ignoring me, aren't you? Don't get sulky. I'm not sulking at all, just stating the truth. That bitch is an outsider in the party, but I'm not much different on that front, am I? Had Renta been feeling that way, he'd never noticed. It hadn't just been Mary. Haruhiro hadn't been looking at Renta either. Was that what this meant? Now that Haruhiro think about it, Renta's human too. If they treated him badly, he wouldn't just be fine with that. Though in that case, maybe he should have tried to do something about the way he spoke and acted. It did feel like he was getting exactly what he deserved. Still, even if you told someone to fix their personality, it wasn't something that could be fixed that easily. Even as Renta is now, he has some good points. Well, not absolutely none. At least, my bad. Haruhiro lowered his head. I'm sorry, Renta. I'll be more careful in future. Yeah, you'd better be more careful. Moron. The moron was uncalled for. What's wrong with calling a moron a moron? You moron. Man, Haruhiro scratched his neck. He couldn't even get mad at this point. What is Renta, a child? Yeah, he definitely was. Maybe it was better not to pay attention to every little provocation, and just let it go instead. Manado handled him that way. Come to think of it, while he sighed and looked around the tavern, an Orion cape caught Herr Wairo's eye. It was Shinohara. He was climbing the stairs up to the second level. Ah, I'm going to go say hi to Shinohara-sen, Haruhiro said. What? Let me guess, Haruhiro, you're trying to get into Orion without the rest of us, aren't you? Renta demanded. I won't let you do it alone. I'm going too. Well, no, I have zero intention of doing that, but sure, you can come along. Then me too, if you're all going. Maybe Yum will go too, huh? Well then, me too. It would be a little awkward to be the only one left behind. Haruhiro had his doubts that they should be doing it this way, but the five of them went up the stairs together. Shinohara noticed them before Haruhiro could call out to him, so he rose from his seat. Hey, Haruhiro-kun, it's been a while. Are these your comrades with you? Whoa, I only met this guy once, and he remember me. That's kind of incredible. Hold on, almost everyone sitting around Shinohara is part of Orion. There's got to be more than 20, no, 30 of them. Most are guys, but maybe a third or so are women, and they're all wearing Orion's cape, Haruhiro thought. Yeah, nice to see you. Come along, right this way. Hayashi, could you get some seats for them? Okay, Shinohara-sen. The short-haired, slim-eyed man he had called, Hayashi brought some tables and chairs from nearby. Join me here, Shinohara said. He sat down at one of the chairs. Surrounding the table Hayashi brought over, Haruhiro and the others did the same. The members of Orion didn't gawk. They just continued quietly talking amongst themselves. They're too well-mannered, too pleasant, Haruhiro thought. Even though they hadn't ordered yet, drinks came for them. Forget Moguzo, Yum, and Shihoru. Even Renta was being as quiet and meek as a lamb. Orion's amazing, Haruhiro thought. Well, how is it, Haruhiro-kun? You don't seem to have bought your badge yet, but are you starting to get used to the lifestyle? Huh, how do you know I haven't bought my badge yet? I'm always interested in what the rookies are up to. You're frequenting the old city of Damoro, right? It seems some people have started calling you guys the goblin slayers behind your backs. Ah, we've been targeting nothing but goblins all this time, so that's fair enough. Shinohara paused for a moment, then adjusted his posture. What happened to your comrade was regrettable. Yeah, Haruhiro lowered his eyes to the table, clenching his hands together. Alterna had felt huge to him at first, but in reality it was a fixed space, with everything packed tightly into it. The world volunteer soldiers occupied was an even smaller portion of that. If they didn't go to great lengths to hide it, news of pretty much anything would get around in no time. I should probably keep that in mind. I mean, I was really disappointed about it too, Haruhiro said. He was a great guy. It may be conceited of me to say this, but I know what it's like losing a comrade, Shinohara told him. I've experienced it too. See, please, never forget that pain, Shinohara said, looking at Haruhiro and the others. His eyes were peaceful but filled with a deep sorrow. Even as you carry that pain, you can still move forward. I want you to carve that deep into your hearts. Also, I want you to treasure the comrades you have now. Treasure the time you spent with them, because once it's past, it will never come back. You'll no doubt have regrets, but, please, work hard to leave as few regrets as you can. As he was listening to Shinohara speak, Haruhiro unconsciously brought a hand to his chest. Treasure the comrades I have now. If only he had done more to treasure Manoto while he was alive. If only he had done more to understand Manoto. However, that was no longer possible. That was all the more reason that he needed to value the time he had with the comrades he had now, so as not to leave himself with regrets. There's no telling when I might die myself. It was the same for Moguzo, for Renta, for Yum, for Shihoru, and even for Mary. He didn't want to be left thinking about how he should have done this or that differently if someone died again. I don't want any of us thinking that. Shinohara-san, I have something to ask your advice on. What might that be? I hope I'll be able to help you. It's about Mary. Yesterday, you went up and talked to her. Yeah, you know Mary's in our party now too, right? Yes, what about her? We want you to tell us about Mary. Anything you happen to know. I may be coming to the wrong person, but I don't think she'd tell us herself, even if we tried to force her to. Shinohara tapped the table just once with his index finger. Rather than me, Hayashi's the guy to talk to about that. He was in a party with her at one point. Huh? Haruhiro glanced over to the next table, where Hayashi was currently knocking back a goblet. Hayashi noticed Haruhiro's glance and gave a silent bow. Hayashi spoke, and this was the story he told. Mary and I were comrades from the time we were trainees. Michiki and I were warriors. Matsumi was the mage, Ogu was the thief, and Mary was the priest. I think our party was doing fairly well for itself. We targeted goblins in the old city of Damoro, just like you guys. And 10 days later we bought our badges. We got our equipment together, learned skills, and even after we started hunting kobolds in the Sireni mine, about 8 kilometers northwest of Alterna, we hardly ever ran into a dangerous situation. At the time, I thought that was just how things were. I didn't notice it at all. The one giving us a sense of stability in battle was Mary. Even though she had such perfect looks, she wasn't full of herself because of it. She was always cheerful and energetic, and she smiled all the time, to the point where there was never room for a dark moment in our party. What was more, she learned self-defense skills in addition to light magic, and she fought shoulder to shoulder with Michiki and me. Of course, she never neglected her job as a healer either. If we got even the slightest scratch, she healed it right away. In our party the frontliners were me, Michiki, and Mary. That meant Mary could heal us right away when we got hurt. If Matsumi or Ogu got in trouble, Mary would hurry back to help them right away. Basically, Mary was doing the work of 3 people. Despite that, we fought assuming that we had 5, so of course it was easy. We were effectively a group of 7. It happened to be that there were a lot of volunteer soldiers who arrived in the same period as us, and some of them were even more extraordinary, so we didn't draw much attention. Still, the more we fought, the more our confidence grew. We weren't afraid of anything back then. We hadn't run into much that could scare us, so of course we weren't. However, I now know that it was different for Mary. Every time we got hurt, she must have been on edge. That was why she was so quick to heal us. Once one little thing goes awry, the rest can come tumbling down in an instant, so she may have been desperate to prevent that. She probably knew that the difference between victory and defeat was paper thin for us. The rest of us didn't realize that. We had gotten arrogant. There were other parties aiming to clear the Sireni mines, and we didn't want to lose to them. We thought we wouldn't lose, so we went deeper, ever deeper. Finally, on that fifth layer of the mine, which I will never forget, it happened. You may already know, but kobolds are a furry race with dog-like faces. They're built just a little smaller than humans. However, in the lower mines, there are lots of big kobolds around 170 centimeters tall, and those ones are relatively tough. While they're not as smart as humans, they've built a society with a rigid class structure. They have skilled smiths, and their magic is developing as well. They're good at working in groups, and at least some of them are fearless warriors. We had gotten used to cutting down those kobolds, heading down to the 5th level over the course of a full day. To be honest, we thought we were stronger than the kobolds, that we were superior. Still, we never let our guards down. But even without us letting our guards down, it was stronger than us. Its hair had black and white spots, and, because of the fact that several volunteer soldiers had fallen at its hands, those were known as the spots of death. The kobold itself was called Death Spots. We had heard it went around the mines, bringing a small number of followers with it. If you ever run into Death Spots, don't hesitate, run immediately. Sometimes, it even comes up as far as the entrance. Even if you aren't that deep in, you'll still need to watch out. We knew all that, but we weren't careful, because we'd never seen hide nor hair of Death Spots. Now, that said, when a large, much too large, kobold that looked like Death Spots came at us, we weren't so thoughtlessly optimistic that we expected to win. It's just, we were on the 5th level. It was a long way to the surface, and we couldn't get away easily. We thought we had no choice but to fight. Michiki and I would take on Death Spots in turns, while Mary, Ogu, and Matsumi took care of its followers. That was the plan we followed. At first it went well. Death Spots was as strong as the rumors had said, but between Michiki and myself, we were able to keep it in check, while Mary and the others were gradually whittling down the number of followers. If someone got hurt, Mary healed them immediately, the moment all its followers were gone. I thought we could do it. After all, Death Spots was already wounded, but we were uninjured. To be accurate, even after taking countless wounds, we were uninjured. I misread the situation due to my inexperience. If we had run away then, we might have been able to shake off Death Spots and hidden ourselves somewhere, but we didn't do that. We attacked Death Spots, staining its spotted fur in blood. However, no matter how many times Michiki and I slashed it, Mary bludgeoned it, or Matsumi struck it with magic, it refused to fall. We weren't even slowing it down. It had boundless reserves of stamina, and the pain from its wounds wasn't weakening it. If anything, the pain was just making it madder. It was an outlier. While we were ordinary, first, it slashed Obanogu's face with its claws. While Mary was healing Ogu, Michiki took a hard blow that broke his left arm. While Michiki was being healed, it punched me hard, and I lost consciousness. I was out for 30 seconds at most, but at that time, Ogu had gotten killed. Mary was desperately trying to keep a near-dead Matsumi alive a little longer. Michiki was covered in wounds but trying to hold Death Spots off. When I opened my eyes, I desperately drew Death Spots' attention to me, letting Michiki fall back. With the last spell Matsumi let off before her last breath, Death Spots looked like it was faltering. No, maybe that was just what I wanted to think. With every second, Death Spots was pushing me closer to the edge. Hurry, Mary, hurry, heal Michiki. That's what I shouted. Again, and again, I shouted. I didn't realize until Mary screamed back at me. I'm sorry, Hayashi, I'm sorry. I can't use any more magic. You can't just use magic as much as you want, for as long as you want. For mages and priests to use the power of the elementals and gods, they expend a spiritual power called magic power. Even I understood that much. No, I hadn't truly understood it. Even thought I'd know Matsumi and Mary occasionally meditated to regain their magic power. Right then, things like how much magic power they had left, whether they could spare any, whether they were almost out, those were things I didn't have a firm grasp on. Matsumi and Mary hadn't let us to trouble ourselves with those things. Anytime we needed it, magic came flying. Our wounds were healed. That's what it felt like. We never even thought about how much the two of them were struggling to do that. Even by the time we finished off its followers, Mary must have used a lot of magic power. After a long, drawn-out battle, it had finally run out. Michiki was the one who saved Mary and me. He worked up the last of his strength to stand facing death spots, throwing one skill after another at it. He told me and Mary to run. Mary refused, and she went to charge at death spots. I stopped her. I ran away while dragging her with me. I won't make excuses for what I did. I abandoned a comrade. Michiki wasn't going to make it with those wounds. I wanted to at least grant the last wish of the friend who was risking his life so that we could get away. I'm amazed that we made it back from the 5th level to the surface alive. We almost died many times on the way, and it took a day and a half to made it back. But we had lost them, our precious comrades, our friends, 3 of them at once. Mary was in a terrible state. She was the priest, a healer in charge of saving her comrades, and she had let 3 of them die, then had her own life saved by a comrade. Since then, I have never once seen her smile. Maybe she thinks she doesn't have the right to anymore. After that, we were picked up by Shinohara and joined Orion, but Mary dropped out right away. I think, probably, the comfortable atmosphere of Orion actually made it more painful for her. Since then, Mary has joined any party that asks her to. However, she never sticks with any of them for long. Everything I'd heard about her was completely different for the Mary I had known, so I got worried and went to talk to her. She only kept telling me she was fine. I couldn't help but feel a wall between us. Seeing me was painful for her. That was what her eyes told me. For her, I must be the symbol of her past. What she needs now is a future. That can't be me. Michiki, Matsumi, and Ogu are dead, and I might as well be a ghost to her. We're just her past. She needs to find a future for herself. Otherwise, someday, she'll sink into the swamp of depression, stop being able to move, and eventually, she'll stop breathing. What do we do? What do we say to her? What are we supposed to do? Those questions were all Haruhiro had been able to think about since before going to sleep last night. All he had been able to think about, until they had met Mary at the North Gate at 8. He didn't come to a conclusion. Once they reached the old city of Damuro, he needed to focus on work, so he wouldn't be at leisure to worry about anything else. The time he needed to hold Precious flew by quickly. After returning to Alterna, Haruhiro was finally able to look her straight in the eye for the first time. Mary, I've been wanting to talk to you, Haruhiro began as they were leaving the merchants. Mary said, I see. She wrapped her arms around herself as if bracing for something. Make it quick. Haruhiro knew he had been acting strangely today. He didn't know how to act towards Mary. Everyone must have felt that way. Of course, it was because they heard her story from Hayashi yesterday, but she didn't know about that. Mary had likely noticed something had changed, and she had a premonition that something was coming, like a parting and end. Sorry, but could you leave the party? Haruhiro would say. Mary would immediately say I understand, leaving at once, without further drama. That was what Mary was getting ready to do now. That was how it looked. Was it always like this for her? Every time, in every party? That was just too sad. Mary, you're wrong. That's not what it is. As if to tell her that, Haruhiro called his comrade's name, never looking away from her eyes. Mary furrowed her brow just a little. It wasn't just Haruhiro, Moguzo, Yum, Shihoru, Renta. They were all looking at Mary as well. Mary noticed that, stiffening uneasily. Seriously, that's not it. That's not what's happening here. Mary, we had a priest in our party before. His name was Manodo. Manodo died. It might be more accurate to say that we let him die. We relied on Manodo too much. Manodo was a bit of a perfectionist. See, if we got injured, he would heal even the slightest scratch. He was a reliable healer, and a tank as well. He was always on the front line with Moguzo. On top of that, he was our leader, so we were making Manodo take on 3 roles by himself. I thought he was amazing, but we took that for granted. It wasn't easy on Manodo, but he never let that show, so we never imagined how Manodo was feeling. Now, all we can do is imagine it, because Manodo died. He's gone now. It was probably occurring to Mary that she and Manodo were similar. Quite possibly, she was assuming that Haruhiro had heard about her past, and was telling her this because he knew that Haruhiro had been at a loss of what to do. He had heard the story from Hayashi. He knew roughly what happened long ago, and he had a rough idea why she had turned out like she had. Should he tell Mary that? But, somehow, that felt wrong. He knew what had happened, and why things were like this. But Haruhiro didn't think people were that simple, and he couldn't see into Mary's heart. He couldn't say that he understood her so easily. The only one I can open up about is myself. When we lost Manodo, honestly, I thought we were finished, that it was impossible to go on without him. But, even after Manodo died, we were still alive. When you're alive, you can't just do nothing. For now, we have no choice but to keep ourselves fed as volunteer soldiers, even if we are just trainees. So, we invited you to join us, because, without a priest, we can't do anything at all, you know. That was the only reason. There wasn't anything else to it. In the beginning, me, Renta, Yum, and Shihoru, we were the leftovers to begin with. Moguzo managed to get into a party with some guy named Kazuoka, but he got thrown out, and they even took all his money. With Manoto bringing us together, it wasn't perfect, but we managed to form a party. We became comrades. That was all it was, but we became comrades. Sometimes things don't go so well. Sometimes we get angry and fight with each other. But, in the end, we're all still precious comrades. Rather than dwelling on why we became comrades, right now, the important thing is that we are comrades. As for me, Mary, I think of you as a comrade. Mary said nothing, aside from blinking occasionally. She just stared back into Haruhiro's eyes. I feel the same. Shihoru raised her hand. I think of you as a comrade. That's right. Yum grinned. Mary-chan's a real cutie pie, after all. I do. Moguzo was still wearing his barbet. Of course I think of you as a comrade. It's reassuring, having you there. Renta snorted. Yeah, me too. Well, you know, the way I make a fuss over little injuries, it's not like I haven't reflected on it at all, doing that kind of stuff. Anyway, you're a comrade, I guess. I guess it'll snow tomorrow, Haruhiro said, looking up at the darkening sky. Since Renta says he's reflected on something, hopefully snow is the worst that happens. Even I reflect on things sometimes. My ability to learn is crazy high. After being with me all this time, you still haven't figured that much out. Well, setting that aside, hey, Haruhiro, don't try to just move on. You're making me sad. I think it's about time we settled on a goal. Our current objective, Haruhiro looked at Mary. Mary was the same as before. She just kept staring at Haruhiro. It's probably not out of rejection. She's not rejecting us. I want to think that that's enough for a start. Since it's been kind of vague up until now, we don't seem to be working hard to save enough to buy our badges. We seem to just be living day by day. I want to stop doing that and choose a direction to focus on. Our goal is to become billionaires, and also, world domination. Renta bursting. Haruhiro ignored Renta and continued on with what he was thinking. Aside from the noisy Renta and silent Mary, they all agreed at once. I'm only interested in money and power. Renta broke in. I wanna be popular with girls too, but once I've got the money and the power, then the rest'll work itself out. Well, as a goal, that's a step before being many steps before that goal. but I guess it's fine. Really, Yum sighed. Blah, 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 blah. He just keeps going on. Haruhiro thought as he looked Mary in the eye. Mary, do you have an opinion? Mary cast her eyes downward. She tucked her chin in a little. Was that a nod? He decided to take it as one. Will you join us for dinner? He asked. No, Mary said, adding in a quieter voice. Not yet. I see. He couldn't expect it to happen right away, even if he spent some of his precious time, something he couldn't ever know how much he have left of, to take the next step. By the time he did, the end could still be right around the corner, so of course he want to be in a hurry, considering that. Still, this was a step forward, for Haruhiro and the others, who were still all inexperienced or worse. They had to move forward with little steps like this. Just as Mary turned to go, she said clearly, "See you tomorrow." For now, tomorrow would come. They woke before the bell rang at 6, and began to prepare. They ate whatever seemed good for breakfast. Heading to the north gate before 8, they met up with Mary and headed to the old city of Damuro. They still weren't done making their map of the old city yet. They mapped out more of it while searching for goblins. If it was just 3 goblins, they had gotten to the point where they could handle them without too much issue now. However, when the lightweight class goblins that specialized in evasion were thrown into the mix, they had to be careful. Sometimes the goblins had ranged weapons as well. Mostly it was crude shortbows. Their arrows were slow and didn't have much force, so they weren't that scary. But crossbows were dangerous. If they took a hit from them in the wrong place, crossbows could be instantly lethal. If they saw a group of 5, they pretended they hadn't. If there were 5 or more goblins, it was safe to assume they were a family, or a clan, or some other group with their own territory. There were often similar groups nearby, so attacking one was like stepping on the tail of a tiger, while heavily equipped goblins were sometimes strangely strong, so if they underestimated them, they would be in trouble. For groups of 4 or more, they let them go, unless the conditions were exceptionally good. 4 goblins were about their limit. Most of the goblins acting alone looked poor, but sometimes they had valuable items hidden in their goblin pouches that made them a target. Once a day, they would go to that place. The goblins of the old city fell into 2 broad categories: those that stayed in one place and didn't move around much, and those that traveled from place to place. Those guys were the latter of the 2. They were only in that place occasionally. When the party saw them from a distance, they had a hard time just sitting still. But, no, don't rush it, it's not time yet. Currently, Herwiros was the only party using the old city of Damuro as their hunting grounds. They didn't need to worry about anyone stealing them from them. Now was the time to build their strength. When they returned to Alterna, they would go to Sherry's tavern, though not every day, not to do anything in particular. They just drank and talked. Mary didn't do much talking, but that was a million times better than Renta, who talked far too much. The other volunteer soldiers sometimes poked fun at them, saying, "Hey, goblin slayers," or "How's it hanging, goblin slayers," or "Is Damuro fun, whittle goblin slayers." Actually, anytime they went to the tavern, they could count on being called that once or twice. Renta would say, "Oh, shut up," but if they got mad each and every time, there would be no end to it. Haruhiro didn't mind the name that much. Actually, he thought it didn't have such a bad ring to it. Goblin Slayers, it's nice, I quite like it. If they're calling us that, we'll become the best Goblin Slayers in the volunteer soldier corps, thought Haruhiro. Day after day, it was goblins, 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 goblinsons. At first, all goblin faces looked the same to him, but now Haruhiro could tell them apart pretty well. The vast majority were male, and females were exceptionally rare, he noticed. According to Mary, most of the females were kept in the new city by upper-class goblins as wives. "There's one harem I'm not at all jealous of," Renta said. "Even goblin girls wouldn't take you, Renta, you moron." Haruhiro, Don't you know, I'm hot stuff even with the gobs. Don't take the wandering king of hotness Renta so lightly. You say that, king of hotness, but Yum sees you talking to girls in the tavern and getting ignored. You all know that's just, well, you know, even an invincible guy like me has that happen occasionally. The king of hotness gets shot down too. Even though he's supposed to be the hot king of hotness. Quit saying king of hotness over and over. Besides, if those idiots can't understand my charm, they aren't worth snot. The people who get it really get it. Mary, if you were forced to choose one of the three of us, who would it be? Totally me, right? If I had to, Moguzo-kan. Me? Moguzo opened his eyes wide. He seemed more astonished than shy. Haruhiro looked back and forth from Mary to Moguzo. Yum said, "Ho." She seemed impressed. Shihoro looked at Mary blinking. Warg. Renta bit his tongue stuttering over his words. Why, not me, but Moguzo of all people. That choice is unbelievable. You know, Mary was calm and self-possessed. He's big and lovable. You chose him by size. Well, I can't compete there. There's nothing I can do to beat him there. Still, to think I would lose. And to stupid Moguzo, damn it. Too bad. King of hotness? I told you, stop calling me king of hotness, tiny tits. You're just rubbing salt in the wound. Haruhiro was a little shocked about losing to Moguzo too. It seemed Mary cared about more than just a pretty face. Perhaps because she saw her own gorgeous face in the mirror every day, she wasn't that concerned about other people's faces. But, no, neither Haruhiro nor Renta had especially attractive faces, so that wasn't the issue, either. Haruhiro was the epitome of mediocrity when it came to his looks and abilities, but after this many days in row of facing goblins, he had confidence in his goblin fighting abilities, at least. But still, don't get cocky. Haruhiro reminded himself, I'm not special like Renji, Minato, or Mary. When Minato was alive, he carried me like a baby. Now, I'm taking my first steps as a goblin slayer. If a mediocre guy like me gets careless, I'll definitely fail. Even if I don't get careless, it's still dangerous. So, at the very least, I can't let my guard down. On good days, he could make over 10 silver in a day, and even on bad days, he could make around 2 silver. Mary was living in a pretty good lodging house apparently, but Haruhiro and the others were still living in the terrible and cheap volunteer soldier lodging house. They kept their spending on food to within 12 copper per day, investing the money they had managed to save towards the party as a whole. One of the places those investments went was towards equipment, the other was towards skills. In Haruhiro's case, for defense he bought a second-hand chest protector and a belly band, as well as hand and leg armor. They were all made with tanned leather, so they were light and wouldn't encumber him. The boost to defense was little more than a placebo, but it was important that it made him feel safer. For weapons, he could go to a sharpener to improve the edge on them, and he was already used to using the ones he had. So for the moment, he had no intention of buying new ones. If he had money, it's better spent on equipment for Moguzo. Moguzo was trying to assemble the full set of plated armor he wanted. Normally, plated armor was made to order, but if they ordered it from an armor blacksmith, even at its cheapest, they would be looking at not just a few gold coins, but over 10. Of course, that was out of reach, so they'd find something cheap used, and have an armor blacksmith resize it. Even then, they were still in the realm of spending tens of silver on each of the parts. Moguzo currently had the cuirass, backplate, spolders, and vambraces, as well as half-greaves, which covered just the front of the shins, and he wore all of this over a mail hauberk. For the helmet, he was still using his barbet. His sword was also still the bastard sword he received from his guild. It was getting damaged, and he needed to replace it soon, or something bad would happen. Renta bought a chainmail shirt, wearing leather armor over top of it for some reason. His leather armor had the crest of Skullhell on it, and he seemed awfully proud of it. He'd fallen in love with a weird helmet that looked like an upside-down bucket. which was called a home, so he wore that too. For weapons, he had found a nice-looking longsword in the market once, and bought it on impulse, so Renta was flat broke for a time. What an idiot! Yum had gotten a tanned leather coat and pants, and they looked pretty good on her, with a hooded cloak over top. She was starting to look like a serious hunter. For Shihoru, the mage's robe and hat she had been given by her guild were starting to come apart and get holes in it, so she had bought new ones. She still had the same staff. Apparently, unlike the other magic, the shadow magic which Shihoru was mainly focused on, dark magic, wasn't affected by the qualities of the staff she used. In fact, she said she could use it even without a staff. Shihoru had also learned a new spell, Sleepy Shade. Haruhiro had learned the sneaking and SWAT skills from Barbara Sensei, while Moguzo had learned War Cry. Renta had learned Avoid and Exhaust. Yum had learned Quick Eye, bringing up her accuracy with the bow, and with the pit rat skill, she had learned to swiftly dodge enemy blows. Mary was already a priest whose power and experience was several levels above Haruhiro and the others, so the party's abilities were definitely improving. The problem was, by how much? In the old city of Damoro, there was a place they called the smithy. It was half collapsed, but with what looked to be a furnace and anvil. That roofless building still had a number of traces suggesting it had once been a smithy. In that building, there was now a group of 5 goblins. They had come to the smithy a number of times before now, even taking a break and eating lunch there. Up until this point, they had never spotted a single goblin. It seemed there was a great disparity between the goblins of the new city and the ones that made the old city their home. Goblins which came from the new city that lost power there, or were otherwise ostracized, would be forced to come to the old city. Apparently, these goblins must have been newcomers that drifted here from the new city that way. Newcomers would first choose a place, and if they were a large group, they would try to establish their territory. The 5 new goblins had likely chosen the smithy as their base of operations. After scouting, Haruhiro returned to the spot that wasn't far away from the smithy, where the others were waiting. "Let's try it," he proposed. "There are 5 of them. The one in chainmail's got a crossbow. The rest are all in leather armor. One with a spear, one with a short sword and buckler, one with a hand axe, and one with a sword. The crossbow gob is probably the boss, and the 4 other gobs follow its orders. They're strong enemies, but it will be a good test." Sounds interesting. Renta licked his lips and grabbed the bucket helmet, the home, that sat beside him. "Let's do this thing. I'm just about to cross 41 vices. Once I get there, I can summon my demon Zodiac-kun at noon." "Hehe," Yum showered Renta with a cold look. "What will Zodiac-kun be able to do for us this time? Right now, all he does is whisper in the enemy's ears. Occasionally, get in their way. Don't let this shock you, okay?" Now, the even more powered-up Zodiac-kun will, incredibly, pull the enemy's arms or legs once in a while, disrupting them for us, when it feels like it. Shihoru looked exasperated. "In the end, it's all on its whim. Oh, and one more thing, it only does the leg and arm pulling thing starting in the evening. Until evening, well, you know, it'll do the whisper attack. Tell me if there are enemies, and tell demon jokes when it feels like it." Mary gave a nasal laugh. "That's way too capricious." "Oh, shove it." Renta put on the home and was now dressed bucket style. "What do any of you know about Zodiac-kun? You don't have to understand. I can be the only one who understands Zodiac-kun. Hey, dread nights are lonely, or aloof, rather." I will." Moguzo gave a big nod. "Pull as many of them to me as I can. 2, definitely. If it comes down to it, I'll intimidate them with War Cry." Shihoru hugged her staff, tucking in her chin. "I'll start by putting one of them to sleep with magic." "Yeah." Haruhiro nodded. "Okay then, Shihoru will put the crossbow gob to sleep. It will make a big difference whether you hit it the first time or not." "I know. Leave it to me." When Yum's done taking her preemptive shot, she'll do her best to take one of them in melee combat. I'll keep getting behind them, and if a chance comes along, I'll finish one. "Mary, you." Haruhiro glanced over, and Mary gave a silent nod. It felt like she spoke even less now than before, but if he asked her something, she'd answer, and she did what she was supposed to and did it well. While her style wasn't like what Hayashi had described, Mary must have learned from her way too big mistake, and changed the way she did things. She never went too easy on them, but Mary was a priest they could trust. Now, if she would just smile once every few days, it would be perfect. This is a dry run. Haruhiro looked to each of his comrades, stretching out his right hand. Renta, Moguzo, Yum, and Shihoru placed their right hands on top of Haruhiro's hand. Then Mary did the same. They weren't that far from the smithy, so Haruhiro spoke quietly. Fido, he said in a whisper, and they all responded as one. Ipotsu. Haruhiro led the way, bringing Yum and Shihoru with him. Renta, Mary, and Moguzo followed after. Lowering his hips, loosening his knees, Haruhiro used sneaking to move without making footsteps. Not being thieves, Yum and Shihoru couldn't hope to imitate him, but they could follow in his footsteps, stepping where he stepped. Even that made a great change. They moved from the shadow of a broken building into the shadow of the remains of a building, following a wall that seemed ready to crumble any second. They stuck close to a mountain of rubble. Sleepy Shadow had a range of roughly 12 meters. It would reach from here. The smithy only had 2 walls, which were full of holes left standing. The others had almost fully collapsed. From where they now stood, they had visual confirmation of 4 of the 5 goblins, so they could choose their targets as they pleased. When Haruhiro gave the signal with his hands, Yum and Shihoru poked their faces out from the rubble. Yum readied her bow and knocked an arrow, closing her eyes and breathing deeply. Her eyes opened. She had activated Quick Eye. Apparently, using special eye exercises and self-hypnosis improved her ability to see at a distance, even improving her kinetic vision on top of that. That was the true nature of the Quick Eye skill. Shihoru drew elemental sigils with her staff, and began chanting in a low voice. Rel, Act, Crumb, Darsh. A black, mist-like elemental flew forth from the tip of her staff. It wasn't as fast as Shadow Beat, so if the enemy detected it, it would be pretty easy to avoid. It's going. It should be good. It's going. It's gone. The shadow elemental attacked the crossbow gob's face, forcing its way into the gob's nose, ears, and mouth. The crossbow gob started to stagger. The spear gob, who had been sitting against the wall, noticed and went to jump up. That was when Yum let her arrow fly. The arrow buried itself in the spear gob's shoulder. The spear gob, previously standing, fell back on its rump. Haruhiro shouted out, Moguzo, Renta! Moguzo and Renta bellowed loudly, and charged at the smithy. The crossbow gob collapsed on the ground. It was sleeping. It was deeper than normal sleep, but if someone pinched, or kicked it hard, it would still wake up. They needed to clear out the other gobs, to keep them from shaking the crossbow gob awake. Haruhiro and Yum chased after them. So did Moguzo and Renta. Moguzo bellowed, thanks, to intimidate the hand axe gob with his rage blow that they called the thanks slash, and Renta stabbed at the sword gob with anger. He missed, though. Moguzo paid no heed to the off-balance hand axe gob, attacking the buckler gob instead. When the buckler gob backed away, blocking the bastard sword with its buckler, Moguzo swiftly turned back to the hand axe gob, slashing at it. Moguzo intended to take on both the hand axe gob and buckler gob by himself. Renta was trading blows with the sword gob. Yum charged towards the spear gob that she had already wounded with an arrow. Haruhiro glanced back to Shihoru and Mary quickly. Mary was surveying the battle situation with a frighteningly serious look in her eyes, her priest's staff at the ready. If any enemy were to approach Shihoru, she would be there to intercept them. As a mage, Shihoru was practically defenseless, so it was reassuring to have Mary protecting her. Not that I intend to make Mary go to the trouble. I'll take it down, Haruhiro shouted. He once again checked the positions of his comrades and the gobs. Which one? Choose a target. That one. The hand axe gob, neither walking or running. Haruhiro kept his posture low, moving across the ground as if he were sliding. It was the same idea as sneaking. Soon, he had gotten behind the hand axe gob. That was the moment it happened. His vision zoomed in on the axe gob's scrawny back and he saw something like a light. It was only something that was like light. It probably wasn't an actual light. Regardless, it drew a colorless line, indicating a point in the axe gob's back. What that was, Haruhiro had no idea. It didn't happen every time, or even frequently, but recently, once on a rare occasion, without any reasoning behind it, he would think, right there. Haruhiro moved his dagger along the line that had suddenly appeared, and just as suddenly disappeared. The blade went in incredibly easily, and the blade brushed against something. Right here, thought Haruhiro. By the time he thought that, he had already pierced through it. When he pulled out the dagger, the hand axe gob gave a short groan and collapsed. It was already dead, having lost what could be called its partner. The buckler gob stood on the balls of its feet, taking a half step back. Immediately, Moguzo cried out and struck the buckler with all his might, knocking it away, and then continuing to charge at the plain gob, who was no longer had its the buckler. The gob flailed around with its short sword, but there was no need to bother dodging. Moguzo's armor deflected the sword. He pushed the gob down, hefted his bastard sword high, and with a hung, he brought it down on the gob's skull. It split open. 3 left to go. Exhaust. Rena clicked his tongue, leaping backwards at an incredible speed. Exhaust was a skill that used special movements to instantaneously open a wide gap between the user and their opponent. The sword gob chased after Ranta, as if being sucked in. That had been Ranta's trap. Breaking into a smirk as he backed away, he thrust his sharp longsword forward. Avoid! The sword gob couldn't stop its momentum to avoid the blow. Its throat. Ranta's longsword impaled the sword gob's throat. Ranta gave his longsword a twist, kicking the goblin to the ground. Wahahahaha! He laughed loudly. Shihoru's chanting was half drowned out by that loud, no, that stupid laugh. Rel. Act. Vel. Darsh. It was Shadow Beat. The elemental was launched from the tip of Shihoru's staff, slamming into the spear gob, as the hyper vibrations caused the spear gob's entire body to shudder. Yum closed in. First her machete knocked away its spear, without missing a beat. She said, "Ha," and slashed at the base of its neck. Unable to dodge fully, the spear gob shrieked as it took a deep cut to the shoulder. At that point, the battle had already been decided. Thanks. Moguzo stepped in powerfully, slamming the thanks slash into the spear gob. We can do it like this. Haruhiro nodded. Time to carry out the plan. Finally, Ranta walked over to the sleeping crossbow gob, swinging down his longsword. Would there ever come a day when that theatrically cruel smile suited him? Well, whatever, this is the end. Not just for these gobs, for those guys too. But things were never that easy. Haruhiro, who had gone to scout out that place full of spirit, couldn't help but gulp. Then, you're kidding me, right? He whispered. He hadn't anticipated this at all. There are more of them now, on the second floor, which was more like an open balcony of that broken down, 2-floor building made out of stone. Sat a goblin in plate armor trying to look important. On the first floor, wearing a helmet and chainmail, was a member of a larger subspecies of goblin, a hobgoblin. This much he had expected. The problem wasn't inside the building, it was the 2 goblins outside, both in chainmail and helmets. They each carried a shield and spear with another sword at their waist. They looked like guards. The plate armor gob wasn't sitting on the floor, it was kneeling on top of a chair. That chair hadn't been there before. It must have gone to procure it from somewhere. He dreaded to think it, but could the plate armor gob be increasing the number of minions it had, scheming to expand its power? He wouldn't know unless he asked. Well, no, even if he asked, he wouldn't be able to find out. But if that was what was happening, it meant trouble. Haruhiro went back to his comrades to report in. So, we aren't looking at only 2 enemies. It's 4 now, but there may be more of them soon. This is only my prediction. 4 of them. Mary furrowed her brow, casting her eyes down. Yum puffed out her cheeks with a murl while Shihoru hung her head and sighed. Moguzo lightly tapped the top of his barbet. What? Renta scoffed. Are you all getting scared now, guys? You're hopeless. As servants to the great Renta, you should be ashamed. Since when were we your? Haruhiro started to say, but stopped himself. Whatever, doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Don't stop things halfway. You're supposed to push back there. Come up with a witty retort. You're no fun. You're just Haruhiro, so don't take away the one thing I live for. Haruhiro ignored Renta, looking at Moguzo, Yum, Shihoru, and Mary in turn. Now, if we assume that I'm right and there will be more of them coming, we need to make a decision, not right here and now, maybe, but in the near future. Do we give up, or do we strike quickly? As for me, I don't want to give up. Besides, as we are now, I'm sure we can handle 4 of them. Mary fixed her eyes on Haruhiro. It was a gaze that would not permit him to look away. What's your basis for that? Moguzo's defense has improved considerably. Because his armor hardened, he doesn't need to focus on defending. That's led to an increase in his attacking power as well. Shihoru is able to incapacitate one of them with her magic. We can rely on Yum to actually hit things with her arrows now too. I myself can handle an enemy in combat using SWAT for a short period of time. Also, we have you, Mary. Hey, what about me? Isn't my name going to come up? Isn't that strange? Well, as for me, Mary cast her gaze down and to the side. If you're going to rely on me so much, that troubles me. I'm a priest who let her comrades die after all. We let our priest die. That's why we never want to let another person die. Ever. No matter what happens. It's probably the same for you, Mary. I believe in you. Mary didn't respond. She bit her lip, holding something back. Yum and Shihoru laid their hands on Mary's shoulders. Just gonna say this, Renta pointed to himself with his thumb. But I'm immortal, so I won't die even if they kill me. Don't waste your time worrying over silly things. Mary looked up, loosening her lips a little and narrowing her eyes slightly. Had that just been a smile? It was so reserved. Haruhiro couldn't be sure, but he thought it probably had been. Haruhiro regretted that it had vanished so quickly. I should have burned the vision of it into my memory. Got it? Mary nodded. I'll never let a comrade die again. I'll protect your lives, so you can feel safe. Good. Haruhiro stuck out his right hand, and everyone placed their own right hands on top of his. Fido, Ipotsu. After their usually rallying cry, Mary cocked her head to the side. I've always found it odd, but why is it Fido and Ipotsu? The other 5 laughed a little, then they focused themselves, going over the plan. Going over the plan. Yes, they were going over it. Haruhiro and the others had been preparing for this day. There was no need to formulate a plan from scratch. They would need to make adjustments to account for the additional enemies. But the main thing they needed to do was keep the plate armor gob and hobgob, which were incomparably stronger than the other goblins, in check. This was their highest priority. They would finish the 2 guard gobs as quickly as possible, then take down their main targets. They had discussed strategies for how to overcome the plate armor gob and hobgob over the course of many planning sessions. They could do this. They would definitely win. Like always, Haruhiro led Yum and Shihoru in first. Renta, Moguzo, and Mary followed behind at a distance. The first trial was getting within 12 meters, the approximate range of Sleepy Shadow. There was a wall that provided perfect cover until they were 15 meters away, but past that point would be difficult. Still, through studying the layout, they had learned that if they circled around to the other side, there were the ruins of a building within 10 meters of the 2-floor building that they could just barely hide themselves in. This was the place. Here was where the attack would start from. When Haruhiro gave the signal with his hands, Yum readied her bow and activated Quick Eye, while Shihoru grasped her staff and steadied her breathing. It's finally time. We'll take them down. The plate armor gob and hobgob. They killed Monado, I've done my best not to think of this as revenge, as avenging him. That's because I felt like hatred would muddy my thinking, and make my hands go astray. This isn't about a grudge. They're enemies, strong enemies, a wall we need to transcend. Haruhiro poked his head out from the ruins. He didn't so much suck his breath in as stop breathing. He hurriedly pulled his head back in. It had been looking. The plated armor gob was looking his way. Were we noticed? But why? Had they detected them before? Had he just been found? Or was it a coincidence? Had it just happened to be looking this way, and then its eyes met with Herr Wairo's? He didn't know, but that wasn't was important at that moment. Haruhiro stuck his head out once more, immediately lowering it again. He breathed heavily. The plate armor gob had a crossbow, and it was aiming this way. Well, what do we do? Yum loosened up on her bowstring. Shihoru's face had gone stiff and very pale. Did Renta and the others, who were at a spot not far away, understand the situation? They were hiding in the shadows. Haruhiro couldn't see them from here, so he didn't know. What should I do? What am I going to do? Retreat? No, not an option. The plate armor gob shouted something. That was an order. I'm sure the hobgob and guard gobs'll be coming to attack us. We can't retreat. We have to do this. The problem is that crossbow. If we get hit, one of us could die. Leave this to Yum. Huh. Before he could stop her, Yum left her bow on the ground and jumped out from the ruins. The plate armor gob fired its crossbow. Yum curled herself into a ball, rolling forward at an incredible speed. Pit rat. It was a skill where she moved like those rats they had encountered in the forest, avoiding attacks as she advanced. Did you manage to avoid the arrow? It looked like she had. Haruhiro tapped Shihoru on the shoulder. Magic, right. Shihoru leaned out from the ruins, drawing elemental sigils with her staff and chanting a spell. Rel, Act, Crum, Darsh. A black, mist-like elemental flew towards the plate armor gob. The hobgob had only picked up its club, not left the building, but the guard gobs were closing in on them. Still, if she could just put the plate armor gob to sleep. Haruhiro raised his voice. The plate armor gob had jumped down from the second floor. The shadow elemental passed through the spot where it had been before, dissipating and vanishing. We've botched this. Botched it badly. This is no good. No good at all. No, that's not true. We can make up for it. Don't panic. Haruhiro drew his dagger. I'll face them. Shihoru, you get over to Mary's side. Shihoru responded. Right. Again, Renta and Moguzo came out of the shadows. Yum used Pit Rat again, avoiding a guard gob's spear. The other guard gob came at Haruhiro. Where are the plate armor gob and hobgob? Damn, I don't have time to check. The spear, the guard gob's spear. Haruhiro struck aside the incoming spear with his dagger. If he hit it hard enough, the attack would go aside, and with some luck, he might damage the weapon, make the gob drop it, or knock the gob off balance. That was what the thief fighting skill SWAT did, but the guard gob was pretty strong. No matter how much he hit its spear with his dagger, it kept thrusting at him. This was no average gob. I'll take both, Moguzo shouted out. No way. Was he planning to take on the plate armor gob and hobgob at the same time? That was crazy. However, when it came to both the plate armor gob and hobgob, only Moguzo could fight them properly. That's why they had planned to neutralize the plate armor gob first. That had been the party's plan. You could even call it the root of the plan. It had fallen apart so easily. Maybe they should have run away without a second thought. It was too late now. Regretting not doing it wouldn't change anything. Haruhiro pulled back while using SWAT. Back and back. It looked like Renta and Yum were handling the other guard gob. Shihoru launched another sleepy shadow, but this one hit the hobgob, not the plate armor gob. The hobgob staggered on its feet, like it was going to fall asleep. Before it could, the plate armor gob used the flat of its sword to slap it in the butt and wake it up. That one knows about magic. It knows what we're capable of. Yum, Renta shouted angrily. If you just keep running round, we'll never kill this thing. Hit back, you dolt. Oh, Shush, you're the last one Yum wants to be here and say that. Yum must have tried to escape with Pit Rat again, but she was a little too slow. Besides which, the guard gob may have been getting used to Yum's movements. The guard gob's spear grazed Yum's right shoulder. No, it gouged into it. Why you? How dare you do that to Yum? Renta threw himself at the gob. He jumped in, swinging his long word down diagonally. Hatred, Ga! The guard gob guarded with its shield, then, holding its spear so it was shorter, it thrust. It was blocked. It thrust again. Oh, wah, whoa! Renta managed to barely parry its repeated attacks with his long sword, backing away with those unique movements he used. Exhaust, bring it, huh? Why aren't you coming after me? Because you're too obvious. Haruhiro spat the words as he swatted, and swatted again. Mary chanted a prayer. O light, may Lumira's divine protection be upon you. Heal. Unlike cure, heal didn't require the priest to hold their palm over the wound. It could heal people at a distance, and it affected the whole body. It was a spell Monado hadn't learned. Yum was right-handed, and the wound was in her right shoulder. Mary must have determined the wound was serious enough to heal right away. Moguzo was in danger, but now Yum was able to return to the front line. He was managing to avoid the hobgob's club somehow, but the plate armor gob's sword kept hitting him hard. There was no time to waste. Haruhiro needed to take out one of the guard gobs and go help Moguzo or things were going to turn sour. Isn't there anything he can do? A plan of some kind. He had to do more than just think. He needed to keep swatting the guard gob's spear. He was running out of breath and his hands were going numb. But if he missed once, it would all be over. He felt like he might start to panic. Bear with it. I have to bear with it. Bear with it. And then what? What will I do? Haru. Someone was calling his name. She's never called me Haru before. But that's Mary. It's Mary's voice. I can't afford to look over there. But she called me. It probably means she wants me to go over to her. That was what Haruhiro did. While continuing to swat, he headed over towards Mary and Shihoru. He lured the guard gob in. This is what you wanted, right? It's fine, right? When Mary shouted, switch, Haruhiro jumped to the side. Mary moved up, blocking the guard gob's spear with her priest's staff. No, she did more than just block it. Hit back. For a moment, it looked like the spear had been knocked away by her staff, but that wasn't it. She had used the recoil from its attack to jab the guard gob in the chest. The guard gob groaned and backed away. Now, this is our only chance. Sensing Herr Wairo's intent, Mary continued her onslaught against the guard gob. Since the guard gob had shifted its stance to focus entirely on defense, she couldn't break through, but it was still enough. Haruhiro got behind the guard gob. Let me see it, he prayed. Let me see the light. No good, huh? I can't see it, but I don't have time to be disappointed. Haruhiro rammed his dagger into the guard gob's back with the force of a tackle. He managed to pierce the chainmail, but it was a shallow hit. The guard gob cried, Gugya, and thrashed around wildly. In the spur of the moment, Haruhiro threw his left arm around the guard gob's neck and pulled his dagger halfway out. Then he stabbed it back in again. He pumped the dagger in and out repeatedly, until the guard gob went limp. He stabbed it again and again with reckless abandon. You're a lifesaver, Mary. Haruhiro shoved the now motionless guard gob away and looked around, his shoulders heaving with labored breath. Renta and Yum were still unable to kill the other guard gob. Moguzo blocked the hobgob's club using his bastard sword. He staggered. Moguzo, Haruhiro dashed towards him, but there was no way he could make it in time. The plate armor gob leapt at Moguzo with a cackle, not so much trying to cut him with its sword as to slug him with it. It went for Moguzo's head. Sparks flew between Moguzo's barbet and the plate armor gob's sword. Even with a helmet on, he couldn't shrug that off. Moguzo reeled from the blow, but managed to hold firm, and with a cry and a swing of his bastard sword, he made the plate armor gob and hobgob back away. Moguzo's breathing was ragged. He wasn't bleeding, but when he took off his armor, there were going to be bruises everywhere. Obviously, This was hard on him. And yet, Moguzo swung his bastard sword around with a hearty laugh. This is nothing. I'm fine. Wahaha. He was acting like an entirely different person. Things really were bad. After all, there was no way Moguzo could hold out on his own. Should I support him? However, the dagger of Haruhiro probably couldn't pierce plate armor, nor could it deal a fatal blow to the large hobgob. It may have been practically impossible. Renta, help Moguzo. I'll handle that one. Humph, time for the real star to do his thing. Renta immediately ran over with a hop, skip, and a jump, thrusting his sword at the plate armor gob. Anger, cack, the plate armor gob easily knocked his longsword aside, but it looked like its focus had thankfully shifted from Moguzo to Renta. Oh! Renta was on the receiving end of a one-sided onslaught. In no time, he was stuck purely on the defensive. Hang in there, Renta, don't die. Haruhiro looked around and thought, things are a little easier for Moguzo now, but this guard gob needs to go down already, or we'll slowly get ground down. The way it's holding its shield firmly, it looks like it's focusing on defense. Can't tank for me, so if I want to get behind it. While Haruhiro was thinking, the guard gob turned towards him and threw its spear. Wait, huh? This way? No way. Oh, whoa! He tried to twist out of the way, but the spear took a piece out of Haruhiro's flank and buried itself in the ground, almost doubling over. He tried touching his side, and it was all blood. The pain was great enough for him to groan, but it wasn't anything he couldn't get past of. Mary called out, Haru. She sounded a little worried, so even though it seemed stupid, he was a little happy. I'm fine. We've got to take that guy down. I'll do it, Shihoru said, charging at the goblin. Hold on. What are you doing? What are you doing? Mary was speechless as she chased after Shihoru. The guard gob had drawn its sword that was at its hip, noticed Shihoru. While Shihoru was running, she started to draw elemental sigils. Rel, Act, Vel, Darsh. With a Vuong sound, large mass of black tentacles launched out of the end of her staff. In that moment, Haruhiro realized, Shadow Beat wasn't as slow as Sleepy Shadow, but it still wasn't fast enough to hit the enemy. In that case, why not fire it from up close? Even if the speed was the same, the closer she was, the harder for the enemy to dodge. Basically, Shihoru had done what she had to increase the odds Shadow Beat would hit, and it looked like it had been worth it. The guard gob was hit right in the face by the shadow elemental. Its entire body began to convulse. Yum dashed in and swung her machete. Diagonal cross. Yum's hard slash knocked the guard gob's shield away, cutting deeply into its right arm. Thanks to that, even once it recovered from the shock caused by the hyper vibrations, the guard gob wouldn't be able to use its sword properly. Ha! As if seeing her opportunity, Yum attacked and attacked. She attacked incessantly, without stopping to breathe. Haruhiro easily slipped behind the gob, and though he couldn't see that light, he handled it the same as he had the last one, ramming his dagger into the guard gob's back. He pulled it out a little, then stabbed it in again, wrapping his arm around its neck. He repeatedly stabbed it. He hadn't felt anything when he'd done the first one, but this time he felt bad. This is a cruel way to kill them, even though it made him sick. Haruhiro didn't stop. You guys might have killed me the same way. Sorry, but we're both in the same position here. When he finished off the second gob, he felt exhausted. His side ached, but he didn't have time to whine about it. Finally, the time is here. Stressing his abdominal muscles, Haruhiro raised his voice. We're almost there. Let's show that everything we've done hasn't been in vain. Haruhiro thought, Minato's gone. What we've done hasn't been in vain. Really? Maybe I just want to think that. I wish I could have come up with a cooler line. I want to get to the point where I can. I don't want this to be the end. It's not that I especially want to be a volunteer soldier, but I want to have a tomorrow. I want to live on. I don't want to die. At the very least, I don't want to die yet. Minato, you must have felt the same. You can't have been satisfied. You should have been able to do so many more things. Since I'm lucky enough to still be alive, I'm gonna live. I'll move forward. I'll find a tomorrow with everyone else. But in order to do that, we have to win. We need to take these guys down. I'll take the hobgob first. Haruhiro ran in, eyeing the hobgob's back. Yum looked like she was planning to attack from the side. With a hun, Moguzo gave the hobgob a powerful two-hit combo. The first strike was deflected by its club, but the second slammed into the hobgob's left shoulder. Since it didn't split through the chainmail, the hobgob groaned, "Oboe," while taking its left hand off the club it had been holding with both hands. "It's feeling it. Pile in on it," Haruhiro cried. Then it happened. It's the plate armor gob. Gyahaga, the plate armor gob left Renta behind, swinging at Moguzo. Getting in close, it swung down diagonally at Moguzo. "No way, was that rage blow? You're just a damn goblin." Moguzo blocked with his bastard sword, and they locked blades. However, attacking from that position was one of Moguzo's specialties. With a hung, Moguzo tried to catch the plate armor gob's sword and use wind. When he did, the plate armor gob sprung backwards, turning to slash at Renta immediately. Oh! Caught completely by surprise, there was a loud echo from Renta's bucket helmet being struck. In rapid succession, the plate armor gob followed up with a thrust, an upward slash, and then another downward slash. Renta could only shout, hey, whoa, and run away. He was so pressed that he couldn't even use exhaust to retreat. This is bad. He's going to get killed at this rate. Rel, act, vel, Darsh. Shihoru was the one who saved Renta. It was Shadow Beat. The black ball of magic power struck the plate armor gob's shoulder. The plate armor gob cried out, and shuddered for only a moment. But in that time Renta was able to put some distance between them and catch his breath. "Tech, I didn't need your help. We need a decisive blow." Haruhiro held his side. The pain's too much to ignore. Maybe because he's rushing too much and lost his focus. On the other hand, Shihoru looks like she's having a hard time. She's pretty tired. She used an exhausting spell like Sleepy Shade twice near the beginning, and she just used Shadow Beat for the second time. How many more times can she use magic? Besides, if I'm correct, Sleepy Shadow doesn't work well on targets that are exit. Shadow Beat doesn't seem like it can strike the decisive blow, either. In which case, there's only one thing left. We'll decide this right here, before this drags on and we fall apart. We'll kill the hobgob. Moguzo, do it. Mahem. Moguzo immediately braced himself with both feet and roared. Room. He was loud enough to make their skin crawl. It was the warrior's war cry. If someone heard it at such close range without being ready for it, it was guaranteed to shock them. It wouldn't just shake them up, but also make them shudder in fear. That was what happened to the hobgob. It went rigid, as if suddenly paralyzed. It would recover quickly, but every second was precious. Yum slammed her machete into the hobgob's waist area. Brush clearer. Moguzo took a step back. Then, stepping into it, he let loose a slashing attack with his full weight behind it. Zonks! With a terrifying sound, Moguzo's bastard sword dug into the hobgob's shoulder. It probably reached the collarbone. Fugo! The hobgob dropped to one knee, but it tried to stand up. For as long as it's still breathing, we can't let our guards down, and we won't. With a take that, Haruhiro landed a flying kick on the back of the hobgob's head. With the hobgob reeling again from that blow, Moguzo unleashed a flurry of blows on it. NGH, ga, it's not easy. People can die so quickly, but taking a life isn't easy. It was gruesome to watch, but Haruhiro was part of this. He couldn't look away just because it was horrible. When the hobgob stopped twitching, Moguzo fell to the floor. His back was heaving, his breath labored. It was more than just fatigue. He must have hurt all over. Renta screamed, "Hurry and save me, hurry!" When they looked, Renta was bent over backwards parrying the plate armor gob's sword. He was unsteady on his feet. He's at his limit. Actually, he's probably well past it. Nice going, good job, Renta, yeah, Yumel praised you just this once. Haruhiro and Yum tried to catch the plate armor gob in a pincer attack. However, the plate armor gob struck a blow against Renta and then ran. It's running fast. Does it plan to escape? No, that's not it. Shihoru is over that way. Shihoru's eyes went wide and she thrust her staff out in front of her. She's frightened as hell. She can't fight like that. But there's no need to worry. Out of the way. Mary got in front of Shihoru, putting her priest's staff and body at an angle. It was prepare, a defensive stance skill. The plate armor gob lifted its sword to swing. Would Mary knock it away or turn it aside? She couldn't do either. The plate armor gob's sword arced low, close to the ground. It dug hard into the ground, kicking up dry dirt. Mary was surprised but she shut her eyes. In that moment, the plate armor gob jumped away, throwing something with its left hand. A knife, a throwing knife. Mary backed away, bringing her hand to her belly. It was stabbed in there deeply. Mary, stop. What are you doing? Mary's going to end up like Manado. Don't do this to me. Haruhiro charged in. I'm not thinking. What should I do? I don't know. I have no idea what to do. The next thing he knew, he was closing in on the plate armor gob. The sword. The plate armor gob's sword came at here. It's coming down at Haruhiro diagonally. He can't avoid it. Well, what can he do? Plunge and keep going. Before the sword reaches him, he thought he might die. But Haruhiro wasn't dead. He wasn't dead yet. He ended up hugging the plate armor gob from the front. His face bashed into the plate armor gob's helmet, but he didn't care. Gua! He pushed it down. The plate armor gob said something. It wasn't human language, so he didn't understand. The sword, stop the sword. He desperately held down the plate armor gob's right arm, which held the sword. The plate armor gob punched Haruhiro in the jaw. It punched him over and over again. His head shook and he felt his consciousness was about to fly away. Don't fly away, don't fly. You're not a bird. Talking to himself like that, Haruhiro switched his dagger with a backhanded grip. The plate armor gob screamed. He felt like it was telling him stop, like I'm gonna stop. There's no way I'd stop. The plate armor gob's helmet covered its entire head, but there were holes for the eyes. There, he tried to stab the dagger in there, but the plate armor gob stopped him. It stopped him by grabbing the dagger's blade with its left hand. Both of their hands shook. Just a little further. A little further, it would go into the eye. That a little further felt so far. Damn it, damn. Why do you have to be so strong? Haruhiro-kun. It was Moguzo's voice. Moguzo was running over. Before Haruhiro looked to Moguzo, the plated armor gob had jumped away from him. Hananang. Moguzo arched backward, bringing down the sword he held aloft so hard that it looked like he might fall forward. There was a loud sound that resonated in his gut, and Haruhiro thought, Moguzo, that was awesome. Moguzo's bastard sword had severed the plate armor gob's head. Of course, the plate armor gob was no longer breathing. It was dead. Did you kill it? Renta whispered nervously. Yum slouched to the ground exhausted. Yeah, Yum thinks so. I can hardly believe it, said Shihoru. Whoa! Moguzo lifted up his sword and gave a cheer, but he still couldn't believe it himself, so it was kind of half-hearted. Sorry to say this now, Mary raised a hand, but do you mind if I heal this? It kind of really hurts. What are you apologizing for? Haruhiro laughed, then clutched his side. He nearly groaned. Would it be better if he didn't touch it? It still throbbed with pain if he left it alone. He didn't think he could stay standing much longer, so he crouched down. Sorry, Mary, I still can wait, but do heal me, too. Ouch. I've been thinking all along about what to say when this moment came. It feels like we've spent so long together, but the truth is, we haven't. Actually, we've only known each other for a short time. Too short a time. That's why I feel like I know you, but I don't know you at all. You were good with people, easy to talk with, smart, able to do anything, and I always felt I could depend on you. I thought you were flawless, But it may just be me. I never noticed your shortcomings. You may have been hiding your weaknesses. If we had spent longer together, I might have seen another side of you. I wish I could have known what kind of guy you really were. I wish we'd had more time. With more time, I'm sure so many things would have happened. We might have gotten mad at each other and fought. We might have come to hate each other, or to like each other even more. One day, suddenly, Shihoru might have confessed her love for you. What would you have done then? I don't want to think that. Once someone's gone, there's no point in talking to them, that your words can't reach them. But the more I think about it, the more it hurt my feeling, because I know that the friend I still recall, when I close my eyes has stopped moving, was burned in the flames, whether that was a mercy or not, and now was reduced to ashes, and now is in this grave, which casts its shadow in the evening. We've become volunteer soldiers now. In the end, that was what Haruhiro said to the grave which bore his friend's name and the crescent moon, holding up the Corps badge that looked like a silver coin as he did. Renta, Moguzo, Shihoru, each of them pulled out their own badges, showing them to their departed friend. Mary stood a little away from the other five, her eyes cast downwards, with one hand at her chest. It's not that we didn't have the money to buy our badges before. Haruhiro gripped his badge tight, but we wanted to make a clean break with the past and tie up loose ends first. We all decided we would wait until then. Renta snorted. Honestly, I didn't really care, but you guys wouldn't shut up about it. Stupid Renta. Slapped Renta on the shoulder. You don't have to say such hurtful things at a time like this, do you? People already hate you enough. That's fine by me. After all, I'm a Dread Knight. We live to be hated. Actually, Haruhiro tugged lightly on Yum's cloak. You meant hurtful, not heartful. No one would hate him if they were heartful. Oh, really? Yum always thought it was heartful up until now. Moguzo turned to Shihoru. Isn't it time for that? Yeah. Shihoru walked forward, crouching in front of the grave, pulling one more badge out of her pocket. She hesitated for a moment, and then, hold on, was she trying to force it into the crescent moon carved in the grave? No, Shihoru, that's a bit much. Haruhiro went to stop her, only for Shihoru to turn around saying, Huh? Her face turning a bright shade of crimson. I'm sorry. I was wondering where I ought to leave it and well, it's fine. Really, but I don't think it's going to fit there. The shape isn't the same. Oh, yeah, I guess not. I'm sorry. Even though I'm fat, I'm a bit airheaded too. Well, here. Then, Shihoru gently placed the badge next to the gravestone. This one's for you, Manoto-kun. We used the money you left behind, and everyone chipped in to cover the rest. Mary-san helped too. Please, accept it. If you could hear this, would you laugh and say we didn't have to do it? That it's a waste of money, and we should have spent it on improving our equipment instead. I'm on this side now, so you guys who are on that side should use the money. You might have said it calmly like that, but, no matter what you said, we wouldn't have listened. After all, Manoto, we can't hear your voice. If you want to make us do what you want, say something. Let us hear you. I know, you can't. When I die, I wonder what will happen to me. Is there someplace like heaven? And will I be able to meet you there someday? I don't know. Haruhiro think by himself. There's no way to know. No one knows what comes after death. But, at the very least, we won't be able to talk until then. There's a wide, deep, and fast-running river between the living and the dead. Once you cross that river, no matter what happens, you're never coming back. It's a one-way trip. The tears wouldn't flow, but all of them wanted to stay a little longer, so Haruhiro sat on the grass, hugging one knee. Shihoru placed her hand on the grave, her back trembling. Yum crouched next to Shihoru, putting an arm around her shoulder, and patting her on the head. Renta put his hands on his hips, looking up into the sky. Moguzo took a deep breath, exhaling slowly. Mary held her hair back, looking off into the distance somewhere. We've become a good party. With those words to the friend who would never return, Haruhiro looked towards Alterna. A bell was ringing, probably telling them it was 6 in the afternoon. A red half-moon floated near the horizon. Now that he thought of it, why was the moon here red? Here, Haruhiro glanced at the tower that looked down on them from the hilltop. A tower, that tower. Strange, I feel like I'm forgetting something. Haruhiro and the others had come here, and after that, they had become volunteer soldiers. What about before that? Where was I? What was I doing? I don't know, I don't remember. It wasn't just Haruhiro, it was the same for all of them. Regardless, when Haruhiro and the others had woken up, here was where they were. Here, which is where again? If I recall, it was dark. Dark, I don't know, where exactly was that place? A tower, the tower. That tower is involved somehow, but how is it involved? I don't know. The more I think, the less I understand. If I reach out and touch it, it disappears. Hey, Manoto, why are we here doing all this stuff? Even that doubt is starting to feel hazy, as if it might melt away at any moment. A bell was ringing, the bell telling them it was 6 in the afternoon. When the last echoes of the 7th chiming of the bells reluctantly sank into the town and disappeared, night fell on Alterna. The bells only rang until 6, and they would not be rung again until 6 in the morning the next day. It was the time when craftsmen who woke up early in the morning for work would be chowing down on dinner and having an evening drink. Many businesses took the 6 o'clock bell as a sign to close for the day. It was a time of day when food stalls did more business, and the taverns began to fill up. At Sherry's Tavern, where a great many volunteer soldiers gathered to refresh their spirits for the coming day, from now until late at night were truly their busiest hours. Even considering that tonight was especially lively, it wasn't just volunteer soldiers, old craftsmen, young trainees, portly merchants, glamorous ladies of the night, and even soldiers of the frontier army were there. People as far as the eye could see, to the point that the sizable, two-floor establishment began to feel cramped. Of course, all the seats were taken. Those without seats stood. Not just the first and second floor, but the stairs were filled with people as well. Everyone had crowded into Sherry's Tavern after hearing a certain rumor. Famous volunteer soldiers were usually referred to as so-and-so of clan such and such. Setting aside the area around Alterna, as you went further from the human race's sphere of power, the monsters and hostile races became stronger or relied on their greater numbers to kill humans. Clans were an organization born of necessity, and those seeking to achieve more than a certain degree of success knew they should participate in one. They had to. You could even call it necessary. And yet, one group that had yet to join any clan, a group of 4 volunteer soldiers, 1 elf, and the golem Zenmai, who had been created by one of the volunteer soldiers, the necromancer Pingo. 6 people in total had survived their battles. As a result, they were praised as the greatest of all volunteer soldiers, and their fame had spread throughout Alterna. To this day, they were the only volunteer soldiers ever invited to dine with the Margrave of Alterna, Garland Vedoy. What's more, they had turned him down. Soma, don't you think it's about time? When the alluring woman spoke to Soma, he rose from his seat. Just because of that, the noise died down and a silence fell over the tavern. This was a given, of course. Each and every one of them was here to hear Soma's announcement. If they didn't quietly listen when Soma opened his mouth, what would be the point? After all, today was a day to be commemorated, that Soma would finally be forming a clan. As a result, he would be recruiting comrades, they said. But was that true? After all, they were just rumors, false ones, possibly. Of course, there were doubters, but Soma himself had appeared in Sherry's Tavern, and now, finally, he was about to speak before the masses. Shima. When Soma called her name, the alluring woman smiled and nodded slightly. Yes. Then Soma turned to the man with dreadlocks. Kimori. Yeah, the man with dreadlocks said, twisting his neck left and right lethargically. Soma turned to look at a childlike man. Pingo. Yeah, Pingo looked downward and sighed. I don't like that sort of thing. I see. Soma's lips loosened slightly and he cast a look at the golem wearing a frightening mask. Zenmai slowly nodded his head. Lastly, Soma fixed his gaze on the elf, Lilia. Lilia's vivid and sapphire eyes stared back at Soma. Yes, Soma. Soma closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath, then, moving only his lips, he called another name, Nino. She was gone now. After Soma and the others had lost Nino, who had once been their party's priest, Kimori had changed classes from warrior to paladin, Shima had given up on being a thief, learning to become a shaman in the shadow forest where the elves lived. Lilia had joined the party. Nino was dead. Soma had begun searching for a way to bring her back, but he hadn't found one yet. He thought there might be some lead in the hinterlands of the territory of the former kingdom of Ishmael, where the remains of No Life King were said to sleep. Though, that said, nothing was for certain. There might be no means of reviving the dead in this world. Not in this world. However, what was this world? Really? Where had they come to this world from? To begin with, this ridiculous world, where the moon shone red and aberrant monsters ran free like it was perfectly normal. Was it actually real? It had been a while ago, but Kimori had said, "You know, it's almost like a game," and Soma had responded, "Yeah, it is." At the time, he had certainly thought so, but the two had quickly found they didn't understand what they meant. What was a game? Something was wrong. Those feelings of wrongness grew weak and he nearly forgot them. But now Soma carved them into his heart. If this world was not real, if it was fake, where was the real world to be found? If Soma and the others came from there, what had become of Nino, who had died in this fake world? If they could return to their own world, might Nino still be there? It was a possibility, just a possibility. Still, it was a possibility. They couldn't say for sure that it wasn't possible. Soma opened his eyes. "We have decided to form a clan." A commotion arose and the whole tavern shook. "Our goal is to invade undead DC in the former kingdom of Ishmael, even without having to raise it." Soma's voice carried well. Just by issuing a low shout, timid monsters would turn tail and flee. Any monster that could hold firm before Soma was a big deal. "We have information that there are omens suggesting the revival of No Life King. We will investigate this. If No Life King is revived, we will immediately destroy him once more. Of course, this will not be easy. We will need to find a method to accomplish that. We will need power as well. The 6 of us alone are not enough. We need a greater power." The volunteer soldiers raised their voices in joy while the curious onlookers cheered. The air was ready to burst with all of the voices clapping and whistling. Soma was half deceiving them. However, for those he recognized as trustworthy, he intended to eventually tell them his true objective. "Please, lend us your hands. If you feel this is for you, come forward and participate." "The name? What's the clan's name?" someone shouted. Soma nodded. "From this moment onward, we call ourselves the Daybreakers. You who are brave, you who are wise, you who are noble, you who are decisive, and awe-inspiring, come on to me. If you fear not death, we'll fight until death, and seek life when faced with death. Whoever you are, brave ones, I will welcome you." "Nino," Soma whispered in his heart, standing the center of the excitement, "I will solve the mystery of this world. Then, someday, I will go to meet you." One day Haruhiro's fate would become entwined with theirs. Haruhiro had no way of knowing.